Chapter 91. Just as Zhang Xiaohua's patience was about to run out, Ma Jing finally finished his daily routine for going out. Only then did he slowly pack up his things for going out. He took out some silver from the small cabinet at the head of the Kong bed and weighed it in his hand. A wicked smile appeared on his face. Zhang Xiaohua watched from the side and shook his head, thinking, "This smile really looks like a weasel going to pay his respects to the chickens." However, he immediately froze. Looking at the silver in Ma Jing's hand, he seemed to know that he had forgotten something. When he left the Guozhuang house, the silver he brought was kept by Zhang Xiaohu. Last time, when he parted ways with his second brother at the Lotus Escort Agency, he only brought a small bag with no silver in it. After staying in the villa for more than a month and not using any silver, he naturally couldn't remember. Now that he was going out, it would be difficult to go out without some silver. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua immediately remembered that when he came to the villa, elder sister Qiu Tong seemed to have said that if he worked in the villa, he would receive 3 coins of silver every month. However, he didn't know how to use the silver. He couldn't go find Qiu Tong now. After being in the villa for so long, Zhang Xiaohua also knew that Qiu Tong stayed in the inner courtyard of the villa. Most of the people who lived there were women. It wasn't good for the servants and other people to go there directly. Moreover, Qiu Tong's status in the villa wasn't low. If he went to find her for such a small matter, it would seem like he was too calculative. Why didn't he ask Ma Jing in front of him? Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua went up to Ma Jing and asked with a smile, "Brother Ma, I want to ask you something." Ma Jing glanced at him and said, "Say it, brother. There's nothing in the villa that I don't know." Then, he felt that Zhang Xiaohua was looking at the silver in his hand. His expression changed, and he immediately put the silver into his clothes. He smacked his lips and said, "Other than this, I want to borrow silver." Zhang Xiaohua said, "That, Brother Ma, it's really about the silver." Ma Jing firmly waved his hand and said, "This, I really don't have it." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "This, you can have it." Ma Jing was displeased and said, "Brother, if Big Brother says no, then no. Big Brother is a man of his word." Seeing that Ma Jing was unhappy, Zhang Xiaohua stopped teasing him and said, "Brother Ma, I'm not asking to borrow money from you. I just want to ask you about this month's salary." Ma Jing rolled his eyes and looked at Zhang Xiaohua's expression. After confirming that he didn't want to borrow money from him, he let out a big sigh of relief and said, "Good, kid. You've only been in the villa for a few days, and you already know how to joke with your brother. You've really grown up." Zhang Xiaohua quickly smiled and said, "Look at what you're saying, Brother Ma. It's all because of your influence that I've improved. As long as you talk about my improvement, the first thing I say is to thank Brother Ma. Only then can I thank others." Ma Jing walked forward and patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder. He didn't use a lot of strength, but Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder trembled. Zhang Xiaohua's heart also trembled. He thought to himself, "This in a while. Should I go wash the clothes first?" Patting Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder, Ma Jing said with satisfaction, "Xiaohua, you're very good. Big Brother will teach you another good thing. As for this gratitude, you don't have to put me first. You can put me second." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She asked modestly, "Brother Ma, then should I be the first to thank my parents?" Ma Jing said earnestly, "Wrong, Xiaohua. It's not a problem to thank your parents. First of all, you still have to thank the villa. It's right to say filial piety to your parents. You also have to thank the villa in your heart. You have to put the villa first. Don't just talk about your parents. You have to mention it. Of course, if you thank me, I'll be very happy. It means that you don't need to strengthen your moral education and there's still room for improvement. By the way, you also have to thank the leaders of the villa. They gave you the right to thank not only the villa, but also me and your parents." Zhang Xiaohua looked as if she had been taught a lesson. She nodded like a chick pecking rice. After Ma Jing finished speaking, he turned his head and asked, "By the way, Xiaohua, what did you say just now? I didn't hear it clearly. Can you say it again?" Zhang Xiaohua looked as if she couldn't stand it anymore. She said, "Brother Ma, I just wanted to ask you. I've been in the villa for more than a month, and I haven't received my monthly salary. I want to ask you how to receive my monthly salary." Ma Jing stared at Zhang Xiaohua, looked up and down, and said thoughtfully, "Xiaohua, look at your body. You've grown up, and you're almost developed. It's time to consider some things. However, I still want to advise you. The price of the young ladies of Zuexiang House is not low, but with your monthly salary, it may not be enough. If you insist on having your own way, you'll probably have to borrow money from the accountant for a few more months. However, speaking of borrowing money, I've done it before. You're a newcomer, so they may not be able to do it. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She explained, Brother Ma, look at what you're saying. I don't have such elegant hobbies like you. I'm just... Before Zhang Xiaohua could finish, Ma Jing interrupted and said anxiously, Xiaohua, let me give you another piece of advice. Even if you don't go to the drunken fragrance brothel, you still can't go to those hidden brothels in the alleys. Back in the day, I made a mistake and regretted it for eternity. It was also because I didn't have enough money on hand that I occasionally went there and got infected with a disease. It was so painful that I didn't want to die. Let's not talk about it anymore. Now that I think about it, I feel terrible. All right, brother, I really can't do it. Brother Ma, don't hurt yourself. Brother Ma, don't hurt yourself. After saying that, he went to open the small cabinet on the Kong bed. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him and said emotionally, Brother Ma, can you listen to me? I just want to take out this month's salary to walk around Pingyang City and buy some things. You're thinking too much. Ma Jing asked tentatively, Xiaohua, are you sure? You don't need me to lend you money? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Brother Ma, I'm sure. Although Ma Jing misunderstood, his intention to lend money to Zhang Xiaohua made Zhang Xiaohua extremely touched. This greatly reduced the influence of his smelly feet in Zhang Xiaohua's heart. After that, Ma Jing explained to Zhang Xiaohua, the monthly salary for this villa is not given out every month. It is stored in the villa's account room. If you need it, you can go to the account room to withdraw it. If you don't need it, it will be kept in the account room until the day you leave the villa. Of course, you can also go to the account room to withdraw it every month and store it in the cabinet like me. Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while and decided to withdraw the first month's allowance first. He would buy whatever he liked in Pingyang City and give the rest to his second brother, Zhang Xiaohu. He might not be able to use the money in the mountain villa, but his second brother might be able to use it. If his second brother did not need it, he would keep it first. However, he did not know if he could think of a way to bring it back to his family. At the thought of this, Zhang Xiaohua asked Ma Jing again, Brother Ma, do you know how I can bring the money back to my family in Lu Town? Ma Jing smiled and said, This is easy. If someone you know returns to Lu Town, you can ask him to bring the letter you wrote and the money back. If you don't have one, you can go to the carriage company and ask them to do it for you. However, the carriage company will charge a fee for such a thing. As for how much they charge, it depends on how far Lu Town is from here. They all have a price. You can go there and ask. However, I heard that the fee is not standard and is quite expensive. Why don't the government properly rectify it? Isn't this unreasonable fee disturbing the social order? All right, after Ma Jing finished speaking, she added, Are you really not planning to save money to go to Zuexiang restaurant? I am very familiar with that place and can introduce you to a few good friends. By the time Zhang Xiaohua stood still with the steak, Ma Jing had already packed up and walked out of the small house. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head that was dizzy from Ma Jing's words and hurriedly chased after him. Following that, Zhang Xiaohua followed Ma Jing to the accountant's office to collect the money. The accountant's office was in another place in the villa and it took a long time to walk there. The accountant was an old scholar. When he saw Ma Jing coming, he frowned and said, Flatterer, why are you here again? Didn't you collect this month's salary long ago? Don't tell me you are here to buy on credit again? Flatterer? When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she wanted to laugh. This name really suited Ma Jing. The pronunciation of Ma Jing's name was also very similar. Thinking about Ma Jing's usual behavior, he really did have the potential to be a flatterer. However, she had been here for so long. Why hadn't she heard anyone call him that? Flatterer, this name was often called by people in the past. Later on, the manservant in the villa changed and fewer people knew about it. Naturally, not many people called him that. Usually, when Ma Jing came to the accountant's office, this accountant called him that and felt that it was very affectionate. Now that there was a new little brother following behind him, this Ma Jing's face turned a bit red. He hurriedly went forward and said, Listen to what Mr. Tong is saying. Although I, Ma Jing, am not talented, I won't always come to the accountant's office to buy on credit. Those who can come to buy on credit are those who have difficulties in life. Old Mr. Tong muttered, That's right. Not repeatedly, but at least 7 or 8 times a year. Then, he turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua and said, Young man, what is your name? This time you came to the accountant's office to withdraw all of your money or a part of it. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly went forward and said respectfully, Old Mr. Tong, my name is Zhang Xiaohua. I've only been here for a month, so I don't have much money. Please withdraw all of it. Old Mr. Tong looked at Zhang Xiaohua and said worriedly, It's okay to give all of it to you. It's your money anyway. However, you have to be careful. Don't spend money recklessly. After saying this, his eyes glanced at Ma Jing. Ma Jing seemed to have noticed old Mr. Tong's gaze. He immediately looked up at the roof of the accountant's office and studied the large peony flower painted on the roof. Zhang Xiaohua said submissively, Don't worry, old Mr. Tong. I want to give the money to my second brother first and see if he has any use for it. Then, second brother will think of a way to bring it back to my parents. When old Mr. Tong heard this, he was very happy and said, You're very good. You're a good child. You're not like some people who always take their hard-earned money and learn how to be romantic. In the end, they don't get any points for pretending to be cultured and elegant. Instead, they get a lot of problems. Ma Jing's face became redder, and he studied it more attentively. The withdrawal procedure was actually very simple. They just had to compare it with the register and sign, or leave a fingerprint. Because it was Zhang Xiaohua's first time here, they had to leave a fingerprint. Not long after, Zhang Xiaohua finished the procedure. She carefully put away the first money she had earned in her life. Then, Zhang Xiaohua said goodbye to old Mr. Tong. Old Mr. Tong liked Zhang Xiaohua very much. He talked to him a lot and treated him as if he was his own grandson. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua come out, Ma Jing's research project also came to an end. He pulled Zhang Xiaohua and left quickly. Old Mr. Tong opened his mouth and swallowed the words that he didn't say. However, when old Mr. Tong turned around, he suddenly stopped and said, That's not right. How can Zhang Xiaohua's monthly salary be more than that of a flatterer? Why didn't I notice it just now? Could it be that the manager wrote it wrong? Then, old Mr. Tong returned to normal and slowly walked into the house. He thought to himself, It's not my fault that the manager wrote it wrong. Anyway, I withdrew the money from Zhang Xiaohua according to what was written. This child seems to be good. It's fine that she took more. Who told you to write it wrong? Of course, Zhang Xiaohua and Ma Jing didn't know this. They were walking out of the manor. The last time Zhang Xiaohua entered the manor, he took a carriage and came in from a large side door. However, this accounting house was not on that road. He didn't know the road that Ma Jing took him. In fact, they went out from the original road. He guessed that Zhang Xiaohua didn't know either. The accounting house was not far from the side door. The two of them arrived at the door in a short time. This side door was still guarded by guards. Ma Jing guessed that the guards didn't make things difficult for him because Ma Jing had come here often. Although Ma Jing wanted to get close to him, he understood that it was better for him to stay away from him because he was unapproachable. Although it was the first time that Zhang Xiaohua left the manor, he was already recorded in the register of the manor. Therefore, there was another set of procedures, and it was quickly completed. The two of them each received a waste token. There was a subtle difference between the two waste tokens. However, Ma Jing didn't notice it, and neither did Zhang Xiaohua. The two of them put the waste tokens in their clothes and hid them properly before leaving through the side door. As soon as they went out, Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and asked, Brother Ma, that's not right. I remember that I didn't enter this door last time. Ma Jing said with a smile, There are 5 side doors and 1 main door in our Huanxi manor. Who knows which door you entered last time? By the way, brother, you must keep this waste token well. When you enter the manor later, you have to take it back. If you lose it, it will be very troublesome. You must be careful. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, Of course I know. However, Brother Ma, when will you come back at night? I have to enter the manor with you. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I won't be able to find you on such a long way. Ma Jing curled his lips and said, Look at how careful you are. Once we enter the manor, it's our world. You're still afraid of losing it. I don't know when I'll come back at night. If you want, you can wait at the gatehouse. Zhang Xiaohua said with a bitter face. Well, Brother Ma, remember to come back early. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua once again selectively forgot about Ma Jing's smelly feet and the way she avoided Ma Jing from afar every day. She was like a little wife waiting for her man to come home with a hidden bitterness. It was already June. At noon, the sun was scorching hot. Zhang Xiaohua looked up at the scorching sun and secretly complained about Ma Jing. It would be better to leave early. If they were to rush on the road at this time, they would be burned to death by the heat. After crossing the straight main road, Zhang Xiaohua thought that Ma Jing would walk to the shady place by the side of the road. Unexpectedly, Ma Jing did not walk on the main road. Instead, he walked to the side of a small alley and turned down. Zhang Xiaohua was puzzled. She chased after him and said, Brother Ma, you're going the wrong way. You should be walking on the main road. Looking at Ma Jing's surprised look when he turned back, Zhang Xiaohua thought that she had made a mistake. She hurriedly said, Brother Ma can't be hungry again. Looking at the sky, it's only right to eat something. When Ma Jing heard this, he laughed out loud and said mockingly, Brother, don't tell me you're going to walk to Pingyang City? Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said, Of course we're going to walk to Pingyang City. We don't have our own horse carriages, and the farmstead didn't make any for us. Ma Jing smiled and said, Brother, don't tell me you're going to walk from Lu Town to Pingyang City? Zhang Xiaohua said, No, we're going to take a horse carriage. Oh, don't tell me there's a horse carriage from our farmstead to Pingyang City? Ma Jing did not answer. He waved his hand and gestured for Zhang Xiaohua to follow him. Indeed, Zhang Xiaohua's guess was right. There was a huge courtyard at the end of the alley. There was a huge banner hanging on the courtyard that fluttered in the wind. It said, When a carriage reaches a mountain, there will be a road. Where there is a road, there will be a speeding carriage. There was also a small flag below that said, Speeding? It turned out that this was the horse carriage company that brought Zhang Xiaohua to Pingyang City. Zhang Xiaohua knew that she was ignorant and inexperienced. She did not say anything else and looked at Ma Jing. Not long after, a small horse carriage that could only fit 2 to 3 people drove out of the courtyard and stopped at the entrance, waiting for people to board. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua's dazed expression, Ma Jing pulled Zhang Xiaohua up the horse carriage. He did not forget to say, Brother, since this is your first time going out with me, you don't have to pay for the carriage fees. The next time we go out together, you can go out and take the carriage. Zhang Xiaohua was full of joy as he sat on the horse. He was too lazy to say anything to Ma Jing. He hadn't seen his second brother for such a long time, and he didn't know how he was doing at the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. On the day of his second brother's test, that person had said that his second brother was a good seedling for practicing martial arts. He reckoned that he must have learned a lot of fist techniques by now. Thinking about his own nondescript punches and kicks, Zhang Xiaohua was looking forward to seeing his second brother practice martial arts as soon as possible. However, this horse carriage was very comfortable. It was unbearably hot outside. Thinking about how tired she and second brother were when they walked from here to Pingyang City, she did not expect to be able to take a horse carriage after so long. She did not know if Lu Town had such a horse carriage. If it did, it would be very fast to go from Guozhuang House to Lu Town. She did not need to look for someone else's donkey cart. It would be great if there was such a horse carriage from Guozhuang House to 8 Mile Valley. She did not need to wake up early and arrive at noon. Thinking of 8 Mile Valley, she wondered how eldest brother and sister-in-law were doing. Was eldest brother's health better? Also, how was her parents' health? How was the farmland at home? What was she planting in the plot of land that she owned? All of these made Zhang Xiaohua very concerned. Unknowingly, she fell into deep thought. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua like this, Ma Jing thought that it was noon and that Xiaohua was resting. He did not say anything to her. If he knew that a simple ride in a horse carriage would make Zhang Xiaohua think so much, he would definitely laugh until his teeth fell out. Chapter 92. With a means of transportation, the afternoon sun naturally did not affect Zhang Xiaohua. Sitting in the horse carriage, he thought about the previous time when he and second brother traveled all the way to Pingyang City. Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself, no wonder everyone is willing to live in a big city. The feeling is really different. The quality of life is really high. In the countryside, Even if one wants to enjoy such a life, there is no way to do so. I wonder how much would it cost to take a carriage. It's better not to ask. Otherwise, Ma Jing will nag again. The sound of horse hooves could be heard. After about 10 minutes, the tall city gates of Pingyang City were in sight. Seeing Pingyang City again, Zhang Xiaohua was no longer as surprised as before. It was as if he had already taken it for granted and ignored it. People's habits were indeed scary. This was only the third time he saw it, but he had already lost his novelty. If he were to see it every day, he would definitely ignore it no matter how precious it was. When the horse carriage entered the city, Zhang Xiaohua thought that it would head in the direction of the carriage company. Unexpectedly, it turned in another direction. Although Zhang Xiaohua did not remember the way, he still knew the general direction. He asked Ma Jing in confusion, "Brother Ma, the carriage company doesn't seem to be in this direction. Did I remember wrongly?" Ma Jing had long been tortured by Zhang Xiaohua's strange question. He looked at him and said unhappily, "The carriage company is not in this direction, but Zuixiang brothel is in this direction." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he quickly stood up. Fortunately, he was still short and almost touched the roof of the horse carriage. Ma Jing was shocked when he stood up and asked, "What's wrong, brother?" Zhang Xiaohua said with a red face, "Brother Ma, I really don't want to go to Zuixiang brothel. Let me alight." Ma Jing looked at Zhang Xiaohua's embarrassment and laughed out loud. He said to the front of the horse carriage, "Coachman, please stop for a while and let my brother alight." The horse carriage stopped. Zhang Xiaohua quickly jumped down from the horse carriage, afraid that the horse carriage would continue moving and bring him to Zuixiang brothel. Ma Jing leaned half of his body out of the horse carriage and asked, "Brother, do you know the address of the carriage company? You can go to the carriage shop and look for a carriage. Don't forget, you still have to walk back. Also, where are you going? I can get a carriage to send you back later." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "I know, Brother Ma, you don't need a carriage. Just remember to go back early tonight." After saying that, he waved his hand and ran away. "Come back earlier? It's not easy for me to come out. It would be strange if I returned early," Ma Jing said to himself as a lewd smile appeared on his face. Zhang Xiaohua ran along the road for a while. When she felt that she was far away from the carriage, she stopped and asked a shop assistant for directions to the Ming Lian Hua escort agency. Although it was already noon, the wide roads of Pingyang City were still crowded with people. Zhang Xiaohua squeezed through the crowd with great effort. As he squeezed through the crowd, he was also paying attention to whether anyone was thinking about the money in his arms. Although he did not have a money pouch on his waist, he was still worried even if he had it in his arms. It was really funny to think that he would encounter a thief on his first shopping trip with second brother. Just as he was thinking about it, he suddenly saw a familiar figure in front of him. Zhang Xiaohua could not help but be stunned. Speak of the devil, and he would appear. He did not know anyone in Pingyang City. If this figure was not Zhang Xiaohu, then it must be the thief that he almost caught the last time. Looking at the thief walking in front of him, Zhang Xiaohua felt that it was funny. Thinking that he must be looking at other people now, Zhang Xiaohua could not help but quicken his steps. Sure enough, in front of the thief was a scholar, holding a folding fan. As he fanned himself, he looked around. Whenever there was a novelty stall on the side of the road, he would stop and look at the old books on sale. Sometimes he would buy some brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone. The money pouch on his waist swayed from time to time, causing the thief to shake his head from side to side. Seeing that the thief had been following the scholar for some time and did not have a good chance to catch him, at this moment, there were fewer people in front and it was a fork in the road. The thief quickened his steps and was about to get close to the unsuspecting scholar. Zhang Xiaohua, who was behind him, could not stand it and naturally wanted to stop him. However, at this moment, Zhang Xiaohua was more cautious. She remembered that when she caught the thief last time, a group of people surrounded her and she was still shielded and escaped. Zhang Xiaohua looked around and thought that these people were also around. If she rushed forward rashly, she might be able to catch the thief. But they were a group of people and she was no match for them. Last time, second brother was around and they did not make a move. This time, she was alone and she might be plotted against by them. She remembered that when she came out, Lu Kai and Mr. Lu repeatedly reminded her that it was good to be brave for a just cause, but she must consider her own safety first. What should she do? Seeing that the thief's hand had already reached out, the scholar was still looking up at the roadside signboard. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua's eyes lit up and she shouted, "Brother Zhang, why are you here?" Zhang Xiaohua's voice was very loud and clear. Several people around them turned to look at her, especially those surnamed Zhang. The scholar also turned his head in response. Seeing that the scholar turned his head, the thief quickly withdrew his hand and pretended to buy something, lowering his head to look at the small stall by the side. Seeing that the scholar turned his head, Zhang Xiaohua was also stunned. Zhang Xiaohua really knew this person. It turned out to be the scholar Li Jinfeng who had entered the city with her in the carriage a month ago. It was really a coincidence. She only knew a few people, including this thief. Today, she had only seen two of them. Zhang Xiaohua walked forward with a smile. Li Jinfeng was also very surprised. Although he did not have a deep impression of Zhang Xiaohua, after all, they had been in the same carriage for a long time and they had only parted for a month. Moreover, seeing that Zhang Xiaohua walked towards him and looked at the people around him, it seemed that no one was responding. He guessed that he was the one he was looking for. Zhang Xiaohua went forward and said, "Brother Li, hello?" Li Jinfeng asked in surprise, "You are Zhang Xiaohua, right? I haven't seen you for almost a month and I almost forgot your name. However, I am better than you. Why did you call me Brother Zhang just now?" At this time, the thief at the side saw that the two of them knew each other. Moreover, Zhang Xiaohua was the one who had chased after him some time ago. He had already slipped away when they greeted each other. Zhang Xiaohua then told Li Jinfeng about seeing the thief just now. Li Jinfeng touched the money pouch at his waist. He guessed that Zhang Xiaohua was telling the truth. He could not help but say happily, "It's really thanks to you. If it weren't for you, my living expenses for this month would be gone. I have to thank you properly." Zhang Xiaohua naturally declined and said, "Big brother Li, you're too polite. After all, we're familiar with each other. Even if we're strangers, we'll still help if we can. If I have to thank you for such a small matter, then it'll be a waste of our friendship." Li Jinfeng saw that Zhang Xiaohua's words were very reasonable and could not help but look at him in a new light. He felt that the young man in front of him was no longer the same as when he first met him. He was less immature and more mature. Li Jinfeng could not help but like him from the bottom of his heart, as if he was his own younger brother. Therefore, he affectionately patted him on the shoulder and said, "Well, since you said so, I won't be polite with you. We are all drifters. If there is anything I can help with in the future, feel free to look for me." Then, he told him his address and other things. Zhang Xiaohua memorized it carefully. Li Jinfeng looked at Zhang Xiaohua's green clothes and small hat and felt very strange. He asked, "Where are you going now? Why are you dressed like this? Did you become a servant of some rich family? And your brother?" Zhang Xiaohua roughly told Li Jinfeng about her recent situation, but did not mention anything about Huanxi Manor and Misty School. Although Li Jinfeng was in Pingyang City, he was after all a student and did not know about the matters of the Jianghu. Therefore, he did not know about Huanxi Manor and thought that it was the manor of an ordinary rich family. However, when he heard that Zhang Xiaohua and Zhang Xiaohu had been waiting for them in front of the carriage for a long time, he could not help but blush and feel ashamed. That day, he was dragged out to stay with Shang Yun. First, they ate, then drank. When he woke up, it was already late in the morning. The promise he had made to the Zhang brothers had long been forgotten. Now, if Zhang Xiaohua had not mentioned it, he would have almost forgotten that he had patted his chest in front of them. Li Jinfeng was after all a knowledgeable scholar. He immediately said, "Brother Xiaohua, I have indeed forgotten that day. I have made you wait for so long. I am very sorry. I apologize to you now." After saying that, he bowed to the ground. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly pulled him and said, "Brother Li, you don't have to be like this. Anyway, that Lotus escort agency is very easy to find. We just have to ask around and find it." Li Jinfeng continued to ask, "Brother Xiaohua, where are you going now? Is it the Lotus escort agency?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Brother Li is really clever. How did you guess? I am going to the escort agency." Li Jinfeng smiled and said, "I heard you say that this manor is outside the city. You haven't entered the city for a while. Now that you are here, you are naturally going to the escort agency to see your brother. This isn't hard to guess. Zhang Xiaohua scratched his head and said, after listening to Brother Li's analysis, it really does make sense. Little brother sometimes doesn't like to use his brain, so I can't see very simple things clearly. Li Jinfeng patted his head and said, you are still young. This is the time for you to use your brain. When you encounter something, don't ask others first. Think about it first. Perhaps you will have a plan. Other people's answers are other people's. They may be right, but they may not be suitable for you. Only the answer that you think of yourself belongs to you. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, it was as if a bolt of lightning flashed through his mind. He seemed to have thought of something, but when he thought about it carefully, he couldn't figure it out. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's stunned expression, Li Jinfeng said, I haven't been to the escort agency to see Shang Guanyun and Yu Luan for a long time. Now is a good time to go see them with you. Zhang Xiaohua said happily, is that so? Those two people are also in the escort agency? Are they also armed escorts? Li Jinfeng looked at Zhang Xiaohua's happy expression and shook his head, saying, I don't know what they are doing in the escort agency. They should be learning martial arts. However, they shouldn't be armed escorts. Their family background is not bad, especially Shang Guanyun. He seems to be very rich. They definitely wouldn't join the escort agency. Zhang Xiaohua's face turned red. Just now, Li Jinfeng had told him to use his brain more, but he had forgotten in a flash. He even rashly said that they were armed escorts. He reckoned that they weren't even bodyguards. They should be learning martial arts from Fourth Master Wan and the others. Sigh, he had to use his brain more in the future. He couldn't speak blindly. Silence was golden. Then, Zhang Xiaohua said, Brother Li, I know. There is a martial arts center in the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. You need to spend money to learn. I reckon that Big Brother Shangwan and Big Brother you are practicing martial arts there. Li Jinfeng smiled and said, that should be the case. What they don't lack the least is money. Come, let's go see them. I also have to apologize to your brother. Oh right, what's your brother's name? Zhang Xiaohua stuck out his tongue and said, my second brother's name is Zhang Xiaohu. Then, the two chatted as they walked towards the escort agency. The escort agency was near the city gates. Zhang Xiaohua had fled with Ma Jing's carriage not long after entering the city gates. If he hadn't met Li Jinfeng, he would have arrived at the escort agency long ago. Even though Li Jinfeng was a scholar and walked much slower than Zhang Xiaohua, the two still arrived at the entrance of the escort agency very quickly. There were many people coming and going in front of the escort agency today. It looked very lively and business was probably good. The stone lions on both sides were still mighty, but in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes, he didn't pay much attention to them. He only felt that they were ordinary. Li Jinfeng walked up the steps and raised his hand to salute the guards standing in front of the door. Everyone, I'm going to the escort agency to look for Shang Guanyun who is practicing martial arts here. Please make it easy for me. The leader of the guards smiled and said, oh, you're looking for young Master Shangwan. I wonder if this young master knows how to get inside. There are many things going on today, and I'm afraid I don't have time to bring you there. Li Jinfeng quickly said that there was no need. I've been to your escort agency more than once. I know where young Master Shangwan is. I'll go there myself. After saying that, the guard made an inviting gesture and said, then please, young master. Li Jinfeng nodded and turned around to greet Zhang Xiaohua. He then led him through the door of the escort agency. Zhang Xiaohua was dressed as a manservant, so the guards only thought that he was following Li Jinfeng. Naturally, they didn't stop him to ask questions and let him pass after a glance. There were some people walking around in the square in front of the door. It seemed that they were all here on business and didn't practice martial arts. Zhang Xiaohua dismissed the idea of asking questions and followed Li Jinfeng. He wanted to wait until he saw Zhang Xiaohu before asking for more information. Although Zhang Xiaohua didn't specialize in martial arts like them, they were all living under the same roof. Perhaps he would be familiar with him. The last time Zhang Xiaohua came, she only saw a row of small houses on the right side of the square. Looking at them now, she saw that they were all closed. They were probably resting. Li Jinfeng didn't stop in front of these small houses. He walked along the corridor in front of the house and walked into a spacious courtyard. There was a row of houses in front of him. It was also quiet. Many large trees were planted in the courtyard, making it very shady. After passing through the courtyard, there was a screen wall. There were 2 doors on the left and right. Li Jinfeng didn't hesitate and turned left. After entering through the door, there was another long corridor. At the end of the corridor was a row of exquisite houses. Li Jinfeng brought Zhang Xiaohua to the doors of several fine houses. After carefully identifying them, he walked to the one in the middle and quietly knocked on the door. After a while, a lazy and slightly hoarse voice said, "Who is it? What's the matter?" When Zhang Xiaohua heard this voice, her heart skipped a beat. Wasn't this Yu Luan's voice? She actually remembered that he didn't seem to have spoken much to her. Sure enough, Li Jinfeng said, "Brother Yu, it's Li Jinfeng. I'm here to see my 2 brothers." Before he finished speaking, another voice sounded, "Oh, it's Brother Jinfeng. Come in quickly. You haven't been here for many days. Are you busy with your homework?" This voice had a slight arrogance. It was Shangguan Yun. Li Jinfeng pushed open the door and entered. He smiled and said, "I'm not busy with my homework. I'm just preparing for some exams. I don't have much free time. When I have time, I come to see the 2 heroes." Inside the room, Shangguan Yun and Yu Luan were sitting on 2 chairs. They were still a little sleepy. It was obvious that they had just woken up from their afternoon nap. When they saw Li Jinfeng come in, they both stood up and nodded in greeting. Then they sat down. They were probably familiar with each other and didn't have to be so polite. "Haha, Brother Li, you're too polite. When it comes to heroes, Brother Shangguan is naturally worthy of the title. I'm just a mediocre martial artist. I really don't deserve that title," Yu Luan said very modestly. Shangguan Yun said, "Yu Luan has also improved recently. If you practice harder, you will have a bright future. There's no need to belittle yourself." When the 2 finished speaking, Li Jinfeng said again, "I brought an acquaintance today. Guess who it is?" "An acquaintance? An acquaintance?" The 2 looked at each other blankly. Li Jinfeng smiled and said to the outside, "Zhang Xiaohua, come in." Zhang Xiaohua then walked in with a smile. She bowed to the 2 of them and said, "Greetings to the 2 brothers. We haven't seen each other for more than a month." The 2 of them looked at the greeting and were puzzled. Why would this follower of Li Jinfeng say such things to them? After taking a closer look, they realized that this was the young man from the countryside who sat in the same carriage as them when they came to Pingyang City. He had just changed into a servant's clothes. Shangguan Yun saw Zhang Xiaohua bowing and did not get up. He nodded as a return of the greeting. Yu Luan did not return the greeting. He just walked forward and said, "Zhang Xiaohua, you were in the same carriage as us. Haha, how did you become a servant under Brother Li?" Li Jinfeng heard and quickly explained, No, I can't even take care of myself. How can I find a servant? This Xiaohua brother is working at Huanxi Manor." "Huanxi Manor?" Shangguan Yun heard and raised her eyebrows, saying, "That's a good place. The treatment should be good. Zhang Xiaohua, you're lucky to find a good place as soon as you arrived in Pingyang City." Yu Luan asked, "Is Huanxi Manor very famous?" Shangguan Yun looked at him and said, "Huanxi Manor is the property of the Misty School. Like the Lotus Escort Agency, it is under the management of the Misty School." Yu Luan then understood and continued to ask Zhang Xiaohua, "Oh yes, Zhang Xiaohua, didn't you want to come to the Lotus Escort Agency with us the last time you came to Pingyang City? Why did you go to Huanxi Manor?" Zhang Xiaohua blushed and said, We originally wanted to come to the escort agency to practice martial arts. However, the people there said that we have to pay to practice martial arts. We didn't have any money, so we could only." Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to finish, Yu Luan laughed and said, "I knew it. When you asked about the Lotus Escort Agency that day, I was puzzled as to why you came to the agency. I didn't expect you to have the intention to practice martial arts. If I had asked you more at that time, I would have dispelled your delusion. The poor study, but the rich practice martial arts. How can you learn martial arts without money? The cultivation of martial arts is not something a person like you can imagine. It's better for you to work hard as a servant. Once you've earned some money, you can go home and buy a piece of land. When it's bigger, you can marry a wife and take care of your wife and children. Please add it to your collection. Thank you." Chapter 93. Yu Luan's words were very rude. but they were also unreasonable. When Li Jinfeng heard it, he looked at Zhang Xiaohua's red face and felt quite distressed. Although he was a child from the countryside and was somewhat inexperienced, he had just helped him drive away the thief. Moreover, along the way, his words and actions were full of generosity, which left a very good impression on Li Jinfeng. Therefore, he continued to say, "Brother Yu, what you said is wrong. Brother Xiaohua wholeheartedly pursuing martial arts is a good thing. A warm-hearted person like him who can practice martial arts will certainly help a lot of people." Yu Luan saw that Li Jinfeng was helping Zhang Xiaohua, but did not stop. He continued to say, "Brother Shangguan, you are a scholar, so you don't know how difficult it is to practice martial arts. On the road of martial arts, without money and aptitude, you will never succeed. It is better not to learn martial arts. If there is any trouble, if you try to help yourself, you will lose your life in vain. Don't you think so, Brother Shangguan?" Shangguan Yuan did not say much, nor did he look at Zhang Xiaohua. He just nodded. At this time, Li Jinfeng felt strange. He did not care about Zhang Xiaohua's matter and asked Shangguan Yuan with interest, "Brother Shangguan, what is the reason for this? This little brother is very curious. Can you explain it to this little brother?" Shangguan Yuan frowned and said, "Brother Li, to put it simply, as long as you have a few copper coins, you can buy books and you can study. At worst, you can spend a small amount of money to find a teacher to teach you how to read and write. Teachers can be said to be everywhere, right? But practicing martial arts is different. Let's not talk about other things. Just take me as an example. I've liked practicing martial arts since I was a child, and my family's financial situation is not bad. My father hired a martial master from a young age to teach me martial arts, and even spent a large amount of money to buy precious medicinal herbs for me to bathe in and treat my injuries. Martial masters are already few in number, and those with great ability are even fewer. I don't know how many times I've changed masters, but I finally found one with real ability, and only then was I able to learn some things. That's not it. That master is old and wants to retire to his hometown. My father doesn't want me to continue practicing martial arts, saying that it's fine as long as I have a strong physique to protect myself. That's why I secretly ran out and went to the Lotus Escort Agency to learn martial arts. With my foundation of practicing martial arts since I was a child, and even spent a considerable amount of money to let me in to learn, how could someone like Zhang Xiaohua possibly learn martial arts?" Finished speaking, Shangguan Yuan shook his head and smiled gently. It was not a contemptuous smile, but a gentle smile, as if he was talking about the ambition of a manservant in his manner. It was a kind of comment from top to bottom, a kind of disdain that came from the heart. Yes, it was the kind of disdain that came with a wave of the hand. Yu Luan was not the only one who felt it. He smiled knowingly and looked down at Zhang Xiaohua. Li Jinfeng also felt it, but he knew that Shangguan Yuan came from a rich family, and this Zhang Xiaohua's identity was equivalent to his family's servant. It was already good enough that he said so much. If it were other rich playboys, they would have already spoken ill of him. His actions showed that he did not have any ill intentions towards Zhang Xiaohua. It was just a habit. However, he immediately thought of himself and realized the gap between himself and Shangguan Yuan. He was originally a poor scholar who came to Pingyang City to study. He met Shangguan Yuan by chance and felt that he was a good person and wanted to befriend him. Now, looking at Shangguan Yuan's attitude, was his intention of befriending him? Naturally, Zhang Xiaohua was embarrassed when she heard this. However, it was not the first time that she was criticized. Moreover, she thought that she had already taken the first step on the road of martial arts. As long as she persevered, she would be able to achieve something. Instantly, she felt relieved and the whole world became bigger. She said with a smile, "Young Master Shangguan is right. Every word is from the bottom of my heart. However, there are many ways to practice martial arts, and it is not necessarily the same way." Shangguan Yuan, who originally did not care about Zhang Xiaohua, saw that she was not ashamed or embarrassed by his words, and even said such words. It was as if Zhang Xiaohua had suddenly grown up. He could not help but look at the servant standing at the side of the room, who was neither arrogant nor humble, and said, "Oh, there are other ways? Then tell me." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Isn't my second brother, Zhang Xiaohu, a bodyguard in the Lotus Escort Agency? Isn't he practicing martial arts?" Yu Luan and Li Jinfeng who had just heard Zhang Xiaohua speak very well, were also listening attentively. When they heard the words bodyguard, Yu Luan could not help but laugh and said, "Bodyguard, haha, bodyguard, a little bodyguard dares to compare himself with us, the martial arts students of the martial arts hall. This really makes me laugh until my belly hurts." Shang Guanyun also wanted to laugh, but he suddenly frowned and said, Zhang Xiaohu, why does it sound so familiar? When Yu Luan heard this, he stopped laughing and said, "A bodyguard named Zhang Xiaohu. What's there to be familiar with? Ha ha ha. As Zhang Xiaohu, it's quite familiar. I think I've heard someone mention it before." Suddenly, Shang Guanyun slapped the chair and said, "I remember. A while ago I heard from the martial arts hall's fourth master one that this Zhang Xiaohu is a martial arts genius and a newly recruited bodyguard. He even said that he wanted him to come to our martial arts hall to practice martial arts." At this time, a loud and clear voice came from outside the door. "What genius? He's just a bumpkin. After practicing martial arts for a few days, he dares to call himself a genius. If there's a chance, teach him a lesson and let him know what a true genius is." These words were very arrogant. Zhang Xiaohua turned her head to look at the door, looking forward to seeing what this person looked like. Li Jinfeng also had the same feeling. To be able to say such words, a person must have something to rely on. Most of the scholars were handsome and elegant, but what about those who practiced martial arts? Were they big and thick, with hair growing out of their temples? Li Jinfeng was very much looking forward to it. When Yu Luan heard this, he immediately rushed to the door with a smile on his face. Shang Guanyun frowned and immediately stood up. However, he did not take a step forward. The door was not closed. When Yu Luan rushed to the door, the person had already stepped in. A handsome man walked into the abode, holding the same folding fan as Li Jinfeng. He did not open it, but played with it from time to time. This person was also dressed in white and was very well dressed. There were many small things on his body, but Zhang Xiaohua could not tell what they were. She just felt that they were very long-winded. How could someone dressed like this work in the fields? That person was quite handsome, but his two eyebrows were too high, making people feel that he was a bit flamboyant. However, with that face of his, it could be said that he was in the prime of his life, full of vigor and vitality. It was also very appropriate. Zhang Xiaohua could not help but turn to look at Li Jinfeng, thinking, is this also a martial arts practitioner? Why does he look more like a scholar than brotherly? Yu Luan quickly bowed and said, "Young Master Yu is here. What a rare guest. I haven't seen you in a while." Young Master Yu did not return the greeting. He waved his folding fan and said, "I also went back to visit the elders in my family. I just came back today, and came here to pay a visit to young Master Shangguan." This is? He obviously saw Li Jinfeng in the room. Yu Luan smiled and introduced, "This is young Master Li Jinfeng from Quicksand Academy. He is a scholar that young Master Shangguan and I met when we entered Pingyang City a month ago." When young Master Yu heard that Li Jinfeng was a scholar, he cupped his fists and said, "I am Yu Dai. I am very happy to meet young Master Li." When Li Jinfeng saw Yu Dai bowing, he quickly returned the greeting and said, "Nice to meet you, nice to meet you." Yu Luan seized the opportunity and said, "Young Master Yu is here to learn martial arts in Yu City. The Yu family is an influential family in Yu City." Yu Dai put his index finger to his lips and said, "Shh, keep a low profile, keep a low profile." Then, he directly ignored Zhang Xiaohua and walked to Shang Guanyun. He bowed and said, "Brother Shangguan, I haven't seen you for a few days. You still look energetic." Shang Guanyun also smiled and returned the greeting. "Brother Yu looks better than before. We can't compare to you. Brother Yu, please take a seat." Yu Dai did not stand on ceremony and sat on the chair that Yu Luan had just sat on. Shang Guanyun also sat down. Shang Guanyun and Yu Luan's abode was divided into two rooms. The inner room was naturally for them to rest. The outer room was used for receiving guests. There were only two chairs and a square table. When Li Jinfeng came in, he only cared about talking and did not find a chair to sit on. Now, Shang Guanyun and Yu Dai sat on the only two chairs. The other three people in the room did not have chairs. Yu Luan patted his head and quickly walked into the inner room. He took two chairs and placed them at the bottom. He sat on one and gestured for Li Jinfeng to sit down as well. Li Jinfeng looked at the only chair, but he was too embarrassed to sit on it. It was okay if others ignored Zhang Xiaohua, but he had brought Zhang Xiaohua here. Although she was a servant, she was not his follower. Yu Dai must have misunderstood. He could not explain clearly, otherwise, it would make things worse and make Zhang Xiaohua feel embarrassed. However, he also knew that there were only 4 chairs in Shangguan Yun's abode. It was not that he wanted to make things difficult for Zhang Xiaohua, but what should he do? While he was in a dilemma, Zhang Xiaohua walked behind Li Jinfeng and patted his shoulder. She pointed at the chair with her chin and walked over first. She stood behind the chair with her hands behind her back. Li Jinfeng understood and nodded with a smile. He also sat down. Their actions were seen by the other 3 people. Shangguan Yun knew that there were only 4 chairs in the room. It was normal that there was no seat for Zhang Xiaohua, so he did not care. However, Yu Dai was a little confused. What did this servant's actions mean? However, since it was someone else's business, he did not ask. Instead, he coughed and asked, "Just now, at the door, I heard people talking about the famous armed escort. What was his name again? Can you tell me more about it? I remember that when I left, I had not heard of this name. How did it become so popular in the martial arts center in just a few days?" Yu Luan glanced at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Young Master Yu, his name is Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu came to Pingyang City with us and even took the same horse carriage that day. However, we didn't arrive at the escort agency on the same day. Like young Master Yu, we entered the martial arts dojo. That Zhang Xiaohu first signed up for the martial arts dojo, but because he didn't have enough money, he signed up as an armed escort. It was said that during the test, 6th young Master Li was watching. I heard from the armed escorts and the people from the martial arts dojo outside that day that Zhang Xiaohu didn't practice martial arts for even a day. However, when someone demonstrated a set of Liuha boxing in front of him, Zhang Xiaohu actually had a photographic memory and could repeat it completely. 6th young Master Li was very surprised and praised him endlessly, calling him a genius. Upon hearing this, Yu Dai shook his head and said with a look of disdain, "Although the Liuha boxing is very complicated and it is indeed difficult to demonstrate it in one go, when I first started learning martial arts when I was young, which fist technique didn't pass in one go. I remember that I have a distant cousin who also learned the Liuha boxing for the first time. Although he did not learn it in one go, he was able to learn most of it. With Zhang Xiaohu's talent, it is considered rare. If he were to say that he is a genius, it would be too sensationalist." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she was unhappy. Although Yu Luan was exaggerating, he was still her brother. Of course, she was willing to hear others praise him. Now that Yu Dai had rebutted her, she knew that what he said made sense. However, she still felt that he was a little jealous, so she did not think much of it. Shangguan Yun continued Yu Luan's words and said, "Brother Yu, what you said makes sense. I did not participate in the incident that day. However, when I heard it, I also felt that it was strange. This incident was just normal. It was just a bodyguard. There is nothing special about him. However, there is something that Brother Yu does not know." Yu Dai was stunned and said, "Please enlighten me, Brother Shangguan." Shangguan Yun continued, "When Zhang Xiaohu joined the escort agency as a bodyguard, I had not yet come to the martial arts hall. However, Brother Yu was in the martial arts hall at that time. Why didn't you hear this news? Moreover, before Brother Yu returned to Yu City, didn't you also stay in the escort agency with Zhang Xiaohu? Why didn't you hear this news?" Yu Dai said disapprovingly, "He was just a lowly bodyguard. How would I know? We don't practice martial arts together. Don't tell me you want me to go to the place where the servants practice to take a look?" Shangguan Yun also laughed and said, "Brother Yu's words make sense. Actually, Zhang Xiaohu did not become famous during Brother Yu's time in the escort agency. It was recently." At this time, Shangguan Yun also glanced at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "According to some of the brothers in the martial arts hall, ever since Zhang Xiaohu became a bodyguard, other than the usual training, he only practiced fist techniques. However, he was also strange. No matter how 6th Master Li advised him, he only practiced the Liuha fist. 6th Master Li saw that he was already very good at it and was prepared to teach him other fist techniques. However, he refused to learn. He said that he was not proficient in the Liuha fist and that he would improve every time he practiced it. He even told Sixth Master Li that he would only learn other martial arts when he felt that he could no longer improve. At first, Sixth Master Li thought that Zhang Xiaohu was joking. However, after waiting for more than 10 days, Zhang Xiaohu was still practicing the Liuhe fist. He could not help but get angry and gave Zhang Xiaohu a final warning. He would give him a few more days to think about it. Otherwise, he would not let him practice other martial arts. However, after waiting for more than 10 days, Zhang Xiaohu still did not beg for mercy. He only minded his own business and practiced the Liuhe fist. Sixth Master Li originally wanted to ignore him. However, he thought that Zhang Xiaohu was a good seedling. Although he started practicing martial arts late, he could be a backup for the escort agency in the future. Thus, he pulled a bodyguard to look for Zhang Xiaohu. He told Zhang Xiaohu that if he beat this bodyguard, Sixth Master Li would not say anything and Zhang Xiaohu could practice however he wanted. However, if Zhang Xiaohu lost, he would have to listen to him. Brother Yu, what do you think the result will be? Yu Dai slapped his forehead and said, Brother Shangguan, aren't you bullying my intelligence? If even Zhang Xiaohu lost, what are we still talking about here? Shangguan Yun laughed and said, Haha, that's right. I reckon that day, Sixth Master Li did not even think that Zhang Xiaohu would win. Anyone who thinks about it, although the bodyguards of the Lotus Escort Agency are not veterans, they are still skilled martial artists. Which one of them hasn't practiced for a few years? 5 to 6 years is the minimum. Most of them have practiced for around 10 years. This Zhang Xiaohu has only been practicing martial arts for a month. How could he be their opponent? Yu Luan saw that Zhang Xiaohu was a bit tired and hurriedly said, I don't know too much about the situation that day. I only heard it from others. At the beginning, Zhang Xiaohu was indeed not the bodyguard's opponent. However, he kept using the Liuhe fist to fight. Later on, the more he fought, the more proficient he became. He was actually tied with the bodyguard. That bodyguard tried a few different fist techniques, but to no avail. He became impatient and in the end, he was punched in the chest by Zhang Xiaohu and had no choice but to admit defeat. This Zhang Xiaohu is really interesting. Could it be that he really is a genius? Yu Dai also became interested and said, however, for someone who has only practiced fist techniques for a month to be able to win against someone who has practiced fist techniques for many years, it's too inconceivable. What is the reason for this? At this time, a voice sounded and said, there is no other reason. It's just practice. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Zhang Xiaohua who answered in high spirits. When Zhang Xiaohua heard that his second brother, Zhang Xiaohu, had only practiced the Liuhe fist technique ever since he entered the escort agency, he felt his heart skip a beat. It was as if a string in his heart had been plucked. It was just like when he met Li Jinfeng in the morning. Li Jinfeng's words made his heart skip a beat. Other people's things were other people's things. They might not necessarily be suitable for him. Only those that were suitable for him were his. Now that he combined it with his second brother's training method, he suddenly thought of a way out for himself. In an instant, he felt his eyes brighten as a great path appeared in front of him. When he heard Yu Dai ask for the reason, he couldn't help but feel an itch in his heart and blurted out a sentence that Mr. Liu had said. Yu Dai frowned and snorted, saying, Young Master Li, why is your servant so impolite? Didn't you teach him some etiquette at home? Li Jinfeng blushed a little. Wasn't this obviously saying that he had no manners? He hurriedly stood up and explained, Brother Yu, you've misunderstood. This is not my servant. He works at Huanxi Mountain Villa. Speaking of which, he's a friend that Brother Shangguan, Brother Yu Luan, and I have made together. Friend? Yu Dai looked at Zhang Xiaohua's green robe and small hat and couldn't help but feel a little unhappy. He turned to look at Shangguan Yun. Shangguan Yun also frowned and secretly blamed Li Jinfeng for not knowing how to speak. It was naturally embarrassing to be friends with a servant. Moreover, he had never treated Zhang Xiaohua as a friend. Yu Luan saw this and hurriedly said, Young Master Yu, we also came to Pingyang City in the same carriage. That's how we got to know each other. Yu Dai then nodded arrogantly and retracted his gaze. However, as if he suddenly thought of something, he asked, How many people were in the same carriage as you? Then, didn't he also come with Zhang Xiaohu? Yu Luan smiled and said, There were 5 people in the same carriage as us. He's one of them. Moreover, He's the younger brother of Zhang Xiaohu that we were talking about just now. His name is Zhang Xiaohua. Please collect it, thank you. Chapter 94. Zhang Xiaohua, Zhang Xiaohu? Haha, interesting. Yu Dai laughed. Zhang Xiaohua laughed as well. His laugh was not as arrogant as Yu Dai's, nor was it as arrogant as Shang Guanyun's, nor was it as flattering as Li Jinfeng's. It was a laugh that came from the bottom of his heart. Perhaps it was a laugh of pride for his second brother, or perhaps it was a laugh of happiness for his future. Yu Dai stopped laughing and asked, "Then why don't you tell me the reason?" Zhang Xiaohua calmly said, "This sentence means that there is no special reason, it's just that I'm familiar with it. I've also practiced fist techniques for a few days, but I haven't made any progress. Today, after hearing about my second brother, I suddenly realized that as long as one is truly proficient in one fist technique, it will be as effective as practicing many other fist techniques. There's another saying that it's better to be proficient in a single fist technique than to be proficient in 100 different fist techniques. Isn't this the same principle?" Before anyone else could speak, Li Jinfeng couldn't help but tap his fan and applaud. "Brother Xiaohua, what you said is very clear. The teachers in school always teach us not to bite off more than we can chew. It's also the same principle. A person's energy is limited. Reading 10,000 books doesn't mean that you understand everything. Instead, it's better to focus on one book and completely understand it. In the past, I didn't pay much attention to this saying, but now that I've heard about Brother Xiaohu's achievements, it seems that I'll have to pay more attention to it when I study in the future." Yu Dai still curled her lips and said disapprovingly, "You guys don't practice martial arts, so you won't understand. Practicing martial arts and studying are two different things. A person who has just started practicing martial arts for a month definitely can't beat someone who has practiced for many years. Maybe that bodyguard just made a mistake." Shang Guanyun said, "Yes, that sixth Master Li also thought so." Although he agreed with Zhang Xiaohu's decision, he still wanted to test Zhang Xiaohu's bottom line. The next day, he found 2 more bodyguards to compete with Zhang Xiaohu, but the results were still shocking. Although Zhang Xiaohu didn't win against the 2 bodyguards, the 2 bodyguards didn't gain any advantage either. Both matches ended in a draw. Yu Dai couldn't sit still any longer and stood up from her chair. "Impossible. I know the bodyguards of the Lotus Escort Agency. Many of them have extraordinary skills that aren't inferior to those from the martial arts hall. How can they not take down this Zhang Xiaohu? Impossible. Impossible?" Shang Guanyun waited for Yu Dai to finish speaking. Seeing that Yu Dai was pacing around in circles, he slowly opened his mouth and said, "Young master, you're at a dead end. You didn't listen carefully. Fist techniques? Let's compete in fist techniques." "Oh, fist techniques, I know." Yu Dai patted his head and quietly sat down. He said self-deprecatingly, "I still can't hold it in. Master has already told me so many times. How could I forget that they were competing in fist techniques? If that's the case, then the bodyguards really could have been forced to a draw by Zhang Xiaohu if they didn't use internal strength. But even if I don't use internal strength, I believe that I can still beat Zhang Xiaohu. Isn't he just a bumpkin who just started out?" Yu Dai started off well, but as he spoke, his playboy nature was revealed. When he said the 2 words internal strength, Zhang Xiaohua and Li Jinfeng had faces full of confusion. Yu Luan's face revealed an envious expression, and his chubby fingers couldn't help but rub together. Li Jinfeng didn't say anything and silently looked at them. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't let go of the opportunity to know everything about martial arts, so he impatiently asked, "That internal strength, what is that? What's internal strength?" Ha ha ha. When Yu Dai heard this, he couldn't help but laugh loudly. He shook his head and raised his head to look out the door, not saying anything else. Shang Guanyun also seemed to have heard something very interesting, and his face was full of smiles. However, he still said, "Zhang Xiaohua, I can't tell you what internal strength is right now. When you have the opportunity to practice martial arts, you can ask your master." When Zhang Xiaohua saw that they didn't answer, he couldn't help but look at Yu Luan. However, Yu Luan only smiled flatteringly at Yu Dai, and his slightly greedy eyes followed Zhang Xiaohua. In his eyes, Zhang Xiaohua was just transparent, so how could he answer his question? Zhang Xiaohua sighed in his heart, but immediately became excited. If you don't tell me, I can ask Captain He. After all, he's a regular disciple of the Misty School, so he'll definitely know something like this. Just as he was thinking, Yu Dei suddenly retracted his gaze and stared at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua, right? What kind of internal strength do you want to know? I can tell you, but there's a condition. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and couldn't help but ask, Condition? What condition? Yu Dei smiled and said, It's very simple. Let your second brother Zhang Xiaohu compete with me in fist techniques, and I'll agree to tell you. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she laughed and shook her head. No, I can't agree to your request in place of my second brother. I haven't seen him in a long time. Yu Dei laughed. I knew it. You won't dare to agree. You're just a coward from the countryside. Humph. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head again and said, This has nothing to do with guts. Maybe I'm a coward and don't have the courage, but I'll go forward even if there are thousands of people. This has to do with my heart's beliefs. Sigh, illiteracy is so scary. I need to hurry up and let Zhang Xiaohua study. When Xiaohua says something like this, I get goosebumps. I won't let someone else do this kind of boring thing with my second brother for no reason. I might not know what internal strength is right now, but there are probably many people who know. Since it's not your secret, then I'll naturally find out sooner or later. Young Master Yu, what do you say? Yu Dei originally looked at Zhang Xiaohua with ridicule, but when he finished speaking, the contempt on his face froze. With a pa sound, he closed his fan and said, Zhang Xiaohua, you really are an interesting person. At such a young age, you actually have this kind of thinking. Did you really just come from the countryside? Zhang Xiaohua still had a smile on her face. It doesn't matter if I'm from the countryside or not. I only know that I only do what I think I should do. Yu Dei nodded seriously and said, Zhang Xiaohua, I take back what I just said. Since you said that you'll find out what internal strength is sooner or later, then I won't hide it anymore. I'll tell you right now, and let you know that people from the countryside and people from the city are really different. After he finished speaking, he stared at Zhang Xiaohua to see how he would respond. However, Zhang Xiaohua's pure eyes weren't timid at all. She met his gaze and her face was calm as if she was saying, If you want to say it, then say it. I'm not forcing you. If you don't want to say it, then I don't care. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything, Yu Dei could only slowly say, Actually, internal strength is very complicated to explain. You've never practiced martial arts before, so it's not easy for me to explain it to you. To put it simply, when you practice martial arts, if you practice internal strength, then your body will produce a kind of power. We call it internal strength. Internal strength is different from your body's strength. It can be increased through cultivation. Moreover, when you don't use it, it will circulate in your body. When you use it, it will have an effect. Different fist techniques have different internal strength paths, so when you use it, it will have a very powerful effect. For example, internal strength is like a weapon like a sword. When your second brother competes with someone else in fist techniques, then he'll throw away the weapon and only use his body strength. If you add an internal strength, then that means your second brother is empty-handed while the other person has a sword, then your second brother will definitely lose. Do you understand? Yu Dei's words made Zhang Xiaohua dumbstruck. It really gave Zhang Xiaohua a lesson on the basics of martial arts. He never thought that martial arts would be so complicated. He thought that it was as simple as practicing his fists and legs, but after seeing it, he still had to learn internal strength. After hearing Yu Dei's words, Zhang Xiaohua asked, Does the Arhat fist have an internal strength that can be used with it? Where can I find the cultivation method for this internal strength? Bang! Yu Dei fell from the chair he was sitting on, causing Yu Luan to quickly help him up. He carefully patted the dust off his body and said with a charming smile, Young Master Yu, you should be careful. There's no need to make such a big fuss when talking to this servant. Yu Dei carefully sat down on the chair and used his hands to grip the chair tightly. He threw his folding fan onto the table and solemnly said, This Zhang Xiaohua is a strange person. The questions he asks are too shocking and his thinking is too far ahead. I have no choice but to be careful when dealing with him. Then he turned his face towards Zhang Xiaohua and solemnly said, This little brother, for you to be able to ask this kind of question, it shows that you are an idiot who has never practiced martial arts. As everyone knows, The Arhat fist was passed down from the Dalan temple and is now widely practiced in the Jianghu. Its status in the Jianghu is similar to Zhang San's status in the Jianghu. It is so famous. How can this kind of cabbage-like martial arts fist technique be paired with a profound internal strength? As for internal strength, what is internal strength? It is something that only the upper echelons of the Jianghu can have a glimpse of. It is the jewel on the crown of martial arts and is rarely circulated in the Jianghu. All kinds of internal strength cultivation methods are treasured by various sects and are only passed down to their core disciples. If you want to find an internal strength cultivation method to practice, you are simply dreaming. Moreover, even if you obtain an internal strength cultivation method, you may not be able to practice it. Zhang Xiaohua was once again dumbstruck as he muttered, "Why?" Yu Dai was immensely proud of himself as he fiddled with it and said, "There are millions of people in the world and everyone's aptitude is different. Although this internal strength cultivation method can be seen by everyone, there are very few people who can successfully practice it and obtain internal strength. Think about it. If internal strength was easy to cultivate, then the internal strength cultivation method wouldn't be in such high demand." Li Jinfeng was listening from the side and was also flabbergasted. He interrupted and said, "If young master you didn't say it, I really wouldn't have known that martial arts were so profound. Everyone's aptitude is different and their opportunities are different. There are thousands of weak waters and I can only take one ladle. That's enough, that's enough. Studying literature is still better. With one scroll in hand, I have everything in the world." Zhang Xiaohua had originally been a bit dispirited by Yu Dai's words, but this, "I can only take one ladle out of thousands of weak waters," woke him up. He hadn't even learned his fist technique yet. If he could completely understand his fist technique, then he could consider the matter of internal strength. Beside him, Yu Luan also said, "Young Master Yu's words are very clever. This one has never had the chance to see the true appearance of this pearl, so I entered the Lotus Flower Escort Agency to see if there are any opportunities here. If there's time in the future, I hope that young master you can lend me a helping hand." Yu Dai looked at Yu Luan but didn't reply. What a joke. The internal strength cultivation method was a secret within the sect and also within the family. How could he let others casually look at it? However, it was said that this Lotus Flower Escort Agency's martial arts training hall also had a few simple cultivation methods for outstanding students to choose from. This was still something that could be considered. Looking at Yu Luan's bewitching smile, Yu Dai slowly nodded his head. Seeing Yu Dai's gesture, Yu Luan was overjoyed. He hurriedly picked up the folding fan from the table, carefully opened it, and began fanning Yu Dai with all his might. Seeing this, Shang Guanyun secretly despised him in his heart. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua opened his mouth again. "Young Master Yu, since you've already brought up the matter of internal strength, then I'll represent my second brother and accept your challenge. We'll have a match of fist techniques. How about it?" Yu Dai stared blankly and said in astonishment, "Zhang Xiaohua, what do you mean by this? You didn't agree when I discussed it with you earlier. Now that I've stopped mentioning it, you actually want to agree. Why is this?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled mysteriously and said, "Since my second brother can practice a fist technique to this day, then he must have his own understanding of this fist technique. Moreover, to be able to fight against other escorts and not lose, he must be able to lift something heavy as if it were light. With such a good sparring partner like you guiding him in his fist technique, I reckon that he can't ask for anything more. Why should I stop him?" "Ha ha ha." Yu Dai laughed and said, "You're right. I'm sure that when that Zhang Xiaohu hears that I've challenged him, he'll be eager to give it a try. Let's go. We'll go find him. You lead the way." After waiting for a while, Zhang Xiaohua didn't move. He couldn't help but frown and say, "What's wrong? You don't dare to?" Zhang Xiaohua embarrassedly said, "This is my second time coming to the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. How would I know where second brother is?" She had an innocent look on her face. Yu Luan hurriedly said, "I know. I'll lead everyone over." After he finished speaking, he returned the folding fan to Yu Dai and made a hand gesture, inviting Yu Dai to move forward. Yu Dai didn't stand on ceremony and took the folding fan. With a schwa sound, he opened it and fanned himself out. Looking at his confident and unrestrained figure, Zhang Xiaohua secretly said, if we're comparing elegance, second brother probably isn't your opponent. The escorts didn't live in this courtyard. Zhang Xiaohua followed them out, and after 2 courtyards, they arrived at the courtyard where the escorts lived. The houses in this courtyard were clearly more simple and crude. It wasn't as exquisite as the ones in the martial arts hall. It seemed that there was a fundamental difference between paying and being free. Zhang Xiaohu was now a famous person. When everyone said that they were looking for Zhang Xiaohu, the people in the courtyard all knew where he was. Someone had already led them to the front of a small house. The door was closed. Zhang Xiaohua went up and lightly knocked on the door. A familiar voice sounded from inside. "Who is it?" Zhang Xiaohua couldn't wait to open the door and called out, "Second brother." Zhang Xiaohu ran into the house. The house was quite spacious. He was sitting in a horse stance with his arms crossed. It seemed that he was trying to figure out a move. When he heard Zhang Xiaohua's voice and saw him running into the house, he immediately stopped and happily shouted, "Xiaohua, haha, it's you. Come here quickly. I missed you so much." After he finished speaking, he hugged Zhang Xiaohua, who was rushing over. The 2 brothers hadn't seen each other since they broke up a month ago. Zhang Xiaohua's unexpected visit really gave Zhang Xiaohu a big surprise. After hugging his younger brother for a while, he let go of his arms. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua's slightly chubby face, Zhang Xiaohu felt a little relieved. If he really lost weight, then Zhang Xiaohu would feel guilty. Seeing that the 2 brothers had chatted for a while, Li Jinfeng went forward to greet them. "Zhang Xiaohu, nice to meet you. Do you still remember me?" Zhang Xiaohu then noticed the group of people who had walked in from outside. He smiled and said, "Of course I know you. You came to Pingyang City in the same carriage as us brothers. How can you not know? But who is this?" Yu Dai walked forward and said, "I am Yu Dai from the martial arts dojo. I have heard of Brother Zhang's great name for a long time." Martial arts dojo? Zhang Xiaohu was a little puzzled. Why was this person with Xiaohua? Beside him, Yu Luan hurriedly explained, "Zhang Xiaohu, this is young Master Yu. Young Master Shangguan and I are now practicing martial arts at the martial arts dojo. We have been in the escort agency for so long, and only just found out that you were here. That's why we came to visit you now. My apologies, my apologies." Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "So you are all brothers from the escort agency. Don't stand on ceremony. I also didn't know that you were at the martial arts dojo. Otherwise, I would have gone to look for you long ago. Come, come, take a seat, take a seat." However, he immediately felt awkward. Although the room was spacious, there was only one chair in the corner. Where was everyone supposed to sit? They couldn't all sit on the Kong bed. Zhang Xiaohu scratched his head. Yu Dai said, "I won't sit. I am not here to reminisce today. I want to spar with Brother Zhang. I will wait outside." With that, he turned and walked out. Shangguan Yun and Yu Luan also cupped their hands and followed. Only Li Jinfeng, Zhang Xiaohua, and Zhang Xiaohu were left behind. Zhang Xiaohua apologetically told Zhang Xiaohu what had happened. She then said, "Second brother, was it inappropriate for me to do this? I have made things difficult for you." Xiaohu patted Xiaohua's shoulder and said, "Xiaohua, you've grown up. You've done well. If I were you, I would do the same. Practicing martial arts is all about aura. Even if I lose, I can't lose my aura. I would definitely accept this kind of provocation. Moreover, I've been studying this fist technique for the past few days and have gained some insights. I was just about to find someone to test it on. Yu Dai came at the right time. Hee hee. Haha, let's go and see the fist technique of the martial arts dojo." With that, he took Zhang Xiaohua's hand and walked out of the room together. There was no sign of Yu Dai and the others outside the room. They must have gone to the martial arts arena. When the 3 of them arrived at the arena, there were already many people gathered there. It seemed that the news of Zhang Xiaohu and Yu Dai's match had spread. There were even more people coming here. Zhang Xiaohu and the others squeezed into the crowd and said, make way, make way. If I don't go in, you will all be sunbathing here." When Zhang Xiaohu squeezed into the middle of the crowd, he was already sweating profusely. Zhang Xiaohua could not help but sigh. This martial art was at the end of the line. No matter how much you practiced, you could only fight against 100 people. Only by winning the hearts of people could you be considered a profound martial art. If you used the human wave tactic, even if you fought against 100 people or 1,000 people, you would still be defeated. Just look at second brother's sorry state after squeezing through the crowd. Chapter 95. In the middle of the crowd, there was a wide open space. These people had seen many challenges and competitions, so the space was really suitable. If it was too big, they would not be able to see clearly, but if it was too small, they would easily get hurt. The current space was probably the best result after a lot of blood and tears. In the open space, Yu Dei had already packed up. She was proudly greeting people she knew and waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to arrive. When she saw Zhang Xiaohu squeeze in, she immediately stopped smiling and became serious. Zhang Xiaohu looked around and said to Zhang Xiaohua, "Xiaohua, stand a little further away. Compared to fist techniques, they might not be able to take care of you. They might even accidentally hurt you." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Okay, second brother, I will stand with them." After she finished speaking, she pointed to Shang Guanyun and Yu Luan who were standing at the side. She pulled Li Jinfeng and stood with them. Yu Dei and Zhang Xiaohu looked at each other and cupped their fists at the same time, saying, "Please." Then, the two of them made the same starting pose at the same time. Zhang Xiaohua had also practiced the Liuhe Quan, but unfortunately, he only remembered a few of the moves. He recognized the familiar starting pose. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Yu Dei wanted to use the Liuhe Quan to fight against Zhang Xiaohu's Liuhe Quan? When the two of them started fighting, Zhang Xiaohua knew that his guess was right. The proud and arrogant Yu Dei could not stand people saying that Zhang Xiaohu was a genius, so she deliberately used the Liuhe Quan to fight against Zhang Xiaohu's Liuhe Quan. Therefore, they punched and kicked each other, exchanging a few rounds. The two of them were extremely skilled and remembered all the moves. When they fought, it was very beautiful. It was as if they were brothers performing, coordinating very well. The onlookers were dazzled and cheered. Someone even said, "These two are really good. It's like they've practiced together for many years." What seemed like praise turned into sarcasm in Yu Dei's ears. Zhang Xiaohu had been training for more than a month, so of course it was a compliment. Yu Dei, on the other hand, had been immersed in martial arts for many years. He didn't want to end up like this when he competed with such an opponent. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but stop looking down on Zhang Xiaohu. He tightened his fist and sped up his attack. His fists and legs rained down on Zhang Xiaohu like raindrops. The sudden increase in attack rhythm made Zhang Xiaohu feel very uncomfortable. From time to time, he would show flaws. Fortunately, he was very familiar with this set of Liuhe Quan. Before Yu Dei could attack his flaws, he would make up for them. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohu was like a lotus leaf in the rain. No matter how the rain pitter-pattered and swayed, he just wouldn't fall. Seeing that Yu Dei's Liuhe Quan was almost finished, Zhang Xiaohu was still fighting with ease. Yu Dei's eyes narrowed. He raised his left hand and lowered his right hand, hugging the air in front of his chest. His footsteps swayed. He actually gave up on the Liuhe Quan and changed to the 8 trigrams palm, which used softness to conquer hardness. He circled around Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu was also very good. Seeing that Yu Dei had changed his Liuhe Quan, he wasn't nervous at all. He maintained the horse stance and guarded his position. He continued to use the Liuhe Quan, probing as he attacked, waiting for Yu Dei's flaws. Zhang Xiaohua hadn't learned the 8 trigrams palm before. Therefore, at the beginning, she was quite worried for her second brother. However, when she saw that Zhang Xiaohu was coping with the changes by sticking to his position and guarding his position, she was half relieved. After a while, Zhang Xiaohu actually recovered. According to the situation, Zhang Xiaohua could both defend and attack. Zhang Xiaohua understood that her second brother probably couldn't do anything about this set of Liuhe Quan. Therefore, she focused her attention on the 8 trigrams palm, wanting to take a closer look at the moves inside. Unfortunately, after looking at it for a long time, when Yu Dei was about to change his Liuhe Quan, Zhang Xiaohua still couldn't remember any of the moves. He couldn't help but feel disheartened. It seemed that his aptitude wasn't ordinary. Fortunately, Yu Luan, who was beside him, didn't know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would definitely mock him for being a country bumpkin. How could a Liuhe Quan be so easy to learn? Otherwise, who would dare to hold a fist competition in the Jianghu. After the competition, the other side had secretly learned all of his unique skills. How could he survive in the Jianghu? Before Zhang Xiaohua's bad mood dissipated, Yu Dai had already changed his Liuhe Quan several times, but they didn't pose any real threat to Zhang Xiaohu. Therefore, he rolled his eyes and came up with a plan. As he changed his moves, he revealed a flaw. Zhang Xiaohu didn't seem to realize that it was a trap. He continued to use the Liuhe Quan and punched towards Yu Dai's left ribs with his right fist. When Yu Dai saw that the fist was close to him, he was delighted. His left hand used the silk hand to catch Zhang Xiaohu's wrist, while his right hand seized the opportunity to grab Zhang Xiaohu's lapel. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua almost cried out. Wasn't this the 4 tails against 1,000 caddies that Nie Xiao'er had thrown at him that day? Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but clench his fists. He was worried for his second brother. When Zhang Xiaohu saw that his wrist was caught, Yu Dai's right hand was going to grab his lapel. Of course, he couldn't let him succeed. Therefore, he changed his left hand into a palm and pushed Yu Dai's right hand. When Yu Dai saw that Zhang Xiaohu's left hand was about to reach him, he changed his grip into a fist and blocked Zhang Xiaohu's palm. His left hand continued to follow the momentum and didn't change the direction of Zhang Xiaohu's fist. Instead, he even increased the strength of his fist and used his right fist as a fulcrum to throw Zhang Xiaohu away from his side. When Zhang Xiaohua saw that his second brother seemed to be following in his footsteps, he couldn't help but cry out. However, before his voice could land, the situation on the stage changed. Zhang Xiaohu's body was in the air as he dodged Yu Dai's attack. He flipped a few times in a row to reduce the strength of Yu Dai's attack. He even borrowed a bit of strength to kick out from the air towards Yu Dai's shoulder. Yu Dai hurriedly used his hands to block the attack. However, he lost the initiative and was kicked back a few steps. When the crowd saw this exciting scene, they couldn't help but cheer loudly. However, when Yu Dai heard their cheers, they were like needles pricking his ears. He couldn't help but get angry. He gathered strength in his right foot and used his qinggong to rush to Zhang Xiaohu's side. He took a deep breath and gathered strength from his dantian to his palm. His white palm instantly turned a faint purple. With a strange arc, his palm slapped towards Zhang Xiaohu. When Sheng Guanyun saw the faint purple palm, his expression changed and he shouted, "Purple sand palm?" It turned out that Yu Dai had used his internal strength in a moment of desperation. When Zhang Xiaohua heard the words "purple sand palm," she knew that things weren't going well. She quickly ran towards the arena, but she didn't have time to think about what she could do there. Zhang Xiaohu had just stabilized himself when he saw Yu Dai's figure floating towards him like the wind. He was already stunned. When he saw the purple palm right in front of his eyes, he didn't dare to use his fists to block it. He only used strength in his legs to change his body to the side. He dodged the purple palm, but Zhang Xiaohu's arm collided with Yu Dai's. In front of Yu Dai's internal strength, Zhang Xiaohu couldn't maintain his balance. He staggered and fell in the direction of Zhang Xiaohua. Before Zhang Xiaohu could regain his balance, Yu Dai's palm followed him like a shadow. At this moment, Sheng Guanyun shouted loudly, "Yu Dai, purple sand palm, stop!" He quickly ran towards the arena. When Sheng Guanyun's shout reached Yu Dai's ears, Yu Dai immediately woke up. This was a competition of fist techniques. Her opponent was Zhang Xiaohu, who didn't know any internal strength and only knew one type of fist technique. If her purple sand palm landed on his body, it would break his arms and legs at the very least, take his life. She was already filled with regret. She wanted to withdraw her internal strength, but the force had already been released and it couldn't be withdrawn. What should she do? Yu Dai's expression changed from complacency to anxiety. Zhang Xiaohu saw that the purple palm was about to land on his chest, but his fists were still in the process of being raised. No matter what, he wouldn't be able to block it in time. At this moment, his mind was exceptionally calm. He stared at the palm that was getting bigger and bigger, waiting for the moment of pain. However, suddenly, a small fist appeared in his field of vision. Yes, a small, white fist pierced through the space below his right rib. In a flash, before the purple palm could land on his chest, the fist met it head-on. The purple palm and the white fist collided in an instant. Yu Dai originally thought that he was going to create a disaster, However, he didn't expect that at the last moment, there was a fist in front of him. He was overjoyed. When his palm hit the fist, he borrowed the force to withdraw 70% of his internal strength. Although such a large amount of reverse flow of internal strength could easily cause damage to the meridians, he couldn't care less at this moment. When the internal strength in his hand returned to his meridians, Yudei's heart was at ease. Just as he was about to slowly withdraw his internal strength, something strange happened. When the 30% of Yudei's internal strength hit the small fist, he heard a series of kacha-kacha sounds. Then, there was a pitiful cry of Aya. The sound was loud and clear. It must have been extremely painful. Yudei thought that the voice was familiar. In a flash, he couldn't remember who it was. He could only thank the person in his heart. Just when Yudei thought that the situation was in his hands, suddenly, from the fist that came into contact with his palm, there was a sharp force that hit his palm. That force wasn't internal strength, but pure physical strength. Under the impact of this physical strength, Yudei couldn't hold the pole steadily and fell backwards. The 70% of internal strength that he had withdrawn also broke free from Yudei's control and flowed back like a tide. Yudei was so frightened that his face instantly lost all color. His body flipped a few times in the air, trying to dissipate the force that was pushing him backwards. At the same time, Yudei quickly calmed his mind and secretly used his internal strength, trying his best to bring the uncontrollable internal strength back into his meridians. Luckily, that force was only physical strength and not internal strength, so it didn't invade Yudei's meridians. It only interfered with his internal strength and didn't cause any substantial damage. After he flipped a few times, his body landed on the ground and he was already able to hold the pole. However, the uncontrollable internal strength had already caused damage to his meridians. Before Yudei could stabilize himself, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His internal organs were actually injured. The owner of the fist was even more unbearable. After a blood-curdling scream, there was no more sound. His body flew backwards under the force of Yudei's internal strength. He drew a beautiful arc in the air and fell to the ground far away, never to get up again. Zhang Xiaohu saw the fist and palm collide with each other and heard the sound of bones breaking. There was also a familiar blood-curdling scream. He was shocked. Could it be Zhang Xiaohua? However, his body had already lost balance. When he staggered to the ground and got up again, that thin body had already fallen far away, and there was no movement. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly got up and shouted, "Xiaohua!" He then rushed over. By the time he reached Zhang Xiaohua's side, Shang Guanyun had already run over. Shang Guanyun didn't dare to hesitate. He quickly carried Zhang Xiaohua's thin body and put his finger under Zhang Xiaohua's nose. Then, he let out a long breath and said to Zhang Xiaohu, who was in front of him, "Zhang Xiaohua, don't worry. Zhang Xiaohua just fainted." Zhang Xiaohu was still worried. He carefully took Zhang Xiaohua from Shang Guanyun's hands and stretched out his ear to listen to Zhang Xiaohua's face. He was slightly relieved when he heard Zhang Xiaohua's subtle breathing. After all, as long as her life wasn't in danger, everything else was fine. However, when Zhang Xiaohu's eyes fell on Zhang Xiaohua's broken hand, he couldn't help but feel extremely distressed. Not only was her hand bloody, but it was also swollen. Her entire hand was like a steamed bun. Zhang Xiaohu was filled with hatred. He raised his head and stared at the initiator of all this. However, Zhang Xiaohu couldn't hate him right away. Yudei, who was walking towards them, was staggering. His face was pale gold, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His clothes were also stained with blood. Presumably, his internal injuries were more serious than Zhang Xiaohua's. In an instant, Zhang Xiaohu couldn't hate him. Perhaps this was the cruelty of the Jianghu. This was only a friendly match, a simple exchange of pointers. Just a moment of carelessness had caused such injuries. What if it was a real life and death battle? Zhang Xiaohu felt a chill in his heart. Yudei walked in front of Zhang Xiaohu. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua's appearance, he felt very guilty. He cupped his hands and said to Zhang Xiaohu, "Brother Zhang, I lost this match. I'm really sorry." In a moment of excitement, I forgot that this was only a match of fist techniques. I recklessly used my internal strength. All the losses caused by this will be borne by me. I will also be responsible for treating Xiaohua's injuries. You can rest assured. Zhang Xiaohu looked at this playboy who sincerely wanted to admit his mistake and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Young master you, let's not talk about winning or losing. Quickly find a doctor to treat Xiaohua's injuries. It seems that your injuries aren't light either. You should also hurry and treat them." On the side, Shang Guanyun said, "Two brothers, don't worry. Brother Xiaohua is injured and shouldn't move. Young master, you should also sit down first and don't move. I've already sent Yu Luan to the Shiwu dojo to find a doctor. He'll be here in a moment." At this time, the onlookers had seen what had happened and had already dispersed. There were still a few enthusiastic people on the side who wanted to see if there was anything they could do to help. The doctor hadn't arrived yet, but he heard a scolding. "You Dei, how did you get into trouble again? Did you injure Zhang Xiaohu this time?" When Yu Dei heard this, he was like a mouse that had seen a cat. He obediently stood up and honestly replied, "Grandpa Chu, you've come." His honest appearance was like a child that had just entered school and met a teacher. He didn't have his usual arrogance. Anyone who saw him would praise him for being a sensible child. Everyone looked over and saw that it was the third Master Chu of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. Seeing his hurried and angry appearance, someone must have seen what had happened and hurried to report it. When the third Master Chu rushed over and saw Yu Dei's appearance, he couldn't help but frown, saying, "How did you get internal injuries? Didn't you say that you were going to compete with Zhang Xiaohu in fist techniques?" Then he looked at Zhang Xiaohu, who was behind Yu Dei, and said strangely, "Zhang Xiaohu isn't injured? What's going on?" Yu Dei hurriedly moved to the side and made way for Zhang Xiaohua, who was blocking behind him. He said embarrassedly, "Grandpa Chu, why don't you take a look at Zhang Xiaohua first?" When the third Master Chu saw Zhang Xiaohua's appearance, he couldn't help but fly into a rage. "Yu Dei, you actually dared to use the purple sand palm." Then, he walked over and pushed Yu Dei to the side. He reached out his hand to check Zhang Xiaohua's pulse and sent a wave of internal energy into Zhang Xiaohua's body, saying, "Moreover, you even hit such a small child. How can you be so vicious? How come I didn't see it before? Aren't you trying to take this child's life?" Yu Dei lowered his head deeply. After being scolded by the third Master Chu, his face regained some color. However, the third Master Chu's internal energy circulated around Zhang Xiaohua's body. Only then did his expression change slightly, and he said to Zhang Xiaohu in a gentle voice, "This child is fine. She just fainted and will wake up in a while." Then, the third Master Chu took Zhang Xiaohua's injured hand and carefully pinched it. He looked at it and even sniffed it with his nose. Then, he couldn't help but sigh and ask, "Zhang Xiaohu, who is this child?" Zhang Xiaohu said respectfully, "Third Master Chu, this is my younger brother, Zhang Xiaohua. He came with me when I joined the escort agency as a bodyguard a month ago. Didn't you see him during the test?" When the third Master Chu heard this, he couldn't help but look at Zhang Xiaohua again. He sighed again and said, "I remember now. Isn't he the little fellow who lifted the 500 gene stone weights that day? Didn't he follow Qiu Tong to Huanxi Manor? Why did he run back to the escort agency?" Zhang Xiaohu said, "Xiaohua is working at Huanxi Manor. Didn't he just leave the manor today and come to the escort agency to see me? This is his first time here, and something like this happened. Oh right, third Master Chu, how is my younger brother's injury?" The third Master Chu said, "Zhang Xiaohua's injury, let's wait for the doctor to come and take a good look. However, Zhang Xiaohu, you have to be mentally prepared. I took a rough look just now. How should I put it? Zhang Xiaohua's hand is completely crippled. The bones in his right hand were completely shattered by Yu Dei's internal energy. Even with heaven-defying elixirs, it would be difficult to regrow it perfectly. However, it's a good thing that Zhang Xiaohua doesn't practice martial arts. If his right hand is treated well, he may be able to move it and it won't affect his daily life. However, he can't do farm work. Yes, he can't do other heavy work either. Yu Dei, come here." Yu Dei lowered his head and walked over. The third Master Chu said, "Yu Dei, you know about Zhang Xiaohua's injury. There will be problems for the rest of his life. You have to compensate Zhang Xiaohua well. At least let him not have to work in the future so that he won't have to worry about food and clothing." Yu Dai didn't dare to say no. He said repeatedly, Grandpa Chu, please don't worry. I promise to do this and let Zhang Xiaohua have nothing to worry about for the rest of his life. Chapter 96. Zhang Xiaohu could only smile bitterly. Never have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of his life? That was easy for him to say. It was nothing more than giving him a sum of money. Even if he gave Zhang Xiaohua enough money to last him for the rest of his life, who could guarantee that Zhang Xiaohua would be able to rely on this sum of money for the rest of his life? If something happened to the money, would Zhang Xiaohua, who had lost his hand, be able to live a life of luxury? Disregarding the amount of money he had, the beautiful life of a young man in the prime of his youth had been destroyed by a single palm strike. He could only rely on money to survive. Was a life without goals something Zhang Xiaohua wished for? Everything, all the possibilities, all the dreams, could they be replaced by a lifetime of not having to worry about food and clothing? Others might not know about Zhang Xiaohua's aspirations, but Zhang Xiaohu knew. Putting aside Zhang Xiaohua's potential, his desire to practice martial arts was something that even he could not compare to. If he knew that he could not continue practicing martial arts, would it be possible for him to continue living his life in the future? Zhang Xiaohua was still a child. Would he be able to take such a blow? Zhang Xiaohu was now extremely remorseful and regretful. If he had not agreed to the competition, if he had not come to the escort agency, if he had not suggested coming to Pingyang City, would everything have changed? Seeing Zhang Xiaohu's uncertain expression, the third Master Chu hurriedly said, Zhang Xiaohu, your potential is very good. Some time ago, we were already considering sending you to the martial arts center to learn. This time, you have one against Yu Dai. I believe that everyone in the martial arts center knows that you have the same potential as them. In a few days' time, you can go there to learn. You will still be treated as a bodyguard, and you will still have to carry out missions. The martial arts center will not charge you any money. Zhang Xiaohu forced a smile and said, Third Master Chu, thank you for your kindness, but my brother. The third Master Chu glanced at Yu Dai and said, Zhang Xiaohu, don't worry about your brother's life. After Yu Dai settles your brother down, I will go to the owner of Huan Shi Mountain Villa to plead for him. As long as Huan Shi Mountain Villa doesn't fall, Zhang Xiaohua will work in Huan Shi Mountain Villa every day. I still have some face. I believe I can still plead for Zhang Xiaohua. At this point, Zhang Xiaohu could only nod his head to express his thanks. The third Master Chu and Yu Dai both secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, the doctor from the martial arts center arrived. Just like the officials from the yamen, they always arrive late after everything had been dealt with. Although the doctor's mouth was full of the smell of alcohol, he was still stunned by Zhang Xiaohua's injury. The first sentence he said was, This hand is crippled. The second sentence was, She is dizzy and can't be treated carefully. Please find someone else. The third Master Chu was so angry that he grabbed the doctor's neck and asked, The doctors of the martial arts center are not allowed to drink alcohol during their shift. Why didn't you follow the rules? The doctor said confidently, I was testing the efficacy of the medicinal wine. In the past, Hua Tua tasted hundreds of herbs. We should follow his example. If I don't personally taste it, how can I guarantee the specific effect when it is used to treat people? The third Master Chu threw him to the ground and said to Zhang Xiaohu, Let's go. Take Zhang Xiaohua to the doctor. Fortunately, the doctor's clinic was also in a corner of the martial arts center. Fortunately, there were doctors who hadn't personally tasted the medicinal wine. A rather old doctor attentively aligned Zhang Xiaohua's fractured arm. He then very patiently put the shattered finger bones back together. Poor Zhang Xiaohua woke up when he was aligning her arm. When he put the finger bones back together, she fainted again from the pain. Large beads of sweat dripped down her face. The saying that the fingers are connected to the heart was not a joke. After the doctor applied the best medicine for Zhang Xiaohua and put on a splint, Zhang Xiaohua slowly woke up again. Enduring the piercing pain in her arm, Zhang Xiaohua helplessly looked at her splinted arm. She asked the doctor tentatively, When will my injury heal? The doctor looked at her with pity and said, Child, take good care of yourself. It will take at least a year or so. Poor thing. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she said loudly, This is bad. I have an appointment with Captain He to teach me boxing tonight. What should I do? The doctor said, You still want to practice boxing? Your injury. Before the doctor could finish speaking, Zhang Xiaohu interrupted him and said, Xiaohua, your injury isn't too serious. Don't think about practicing boxing for now. Wait until your injury heals, then let Captain He teach you. If it really doesn't work, don't we have the third Master Chu? He is a great expert in our martial arts center. Let him teach you. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she was overjoyed. She looked at the amiable old man next to her and said, Can you teach me boxing? Third Master Chu, of course. The third Master Chu readily agreed and said, No problem. Zhang Xiaohua, wait until your injury heals. I will definitely teach you well and let you learn better than your brother. Zhang Xiaohua thanked him and then remembered, Second brother, now that I am injured, I can't work in the villa anymore. You should hurry and tell them not to kick me out. Also, second brother, this is my salary from last month. You see, I need money to heal my injury. I was thinking of giving this money to you, or to give it to father and mother. As she said this, she struggled to use her left hand to take out the money from her bosom and handed it to Zhang Xiaohu. When the third Master Chu saw this, he glared fiercely at Yu Dai and said, Zhang Xiaohua, your injury was caused by Yu Dai. Naturally, he will be responsible for paying for the medicine. You don't have to worry about this. In addition, I will immediately send someone to Huanxi Villa to tell them about your situation and help you apply for leave. You can rest assured and recuperate in the escort agency. Your brother is here and can take good care of you. What do you think? Zhang Xiaohua's grateful gaze and words of thanks made the third Master Chu's heart ache. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and left, muttering in his heart, This pitiful and adorable child. Seeing that the third Master Chu had left, Yu Dai finally dared to speak. Zhang Xiaohua, I am really sorry. I was momentarily muddle-headed and shouldn't have used my internal energy. Don't worry, I will definitely compensate you until you are satisfied. Zhang Xiaohua looked at this hedonistic son and didn't know what to say. She had used her fist to catch his palm and ended up in this state. If his palm had hit her second brother's chest, what would have happened? Even if she didn't think with her feet, she knew that if that had happened, would he still want to use the money to compensate? Definitely he would still want to use the money. Zhang Xiaohua could almost guarantee it for him. Zhang Xiaohua looked at him helplessly and nodded with a smile. Yu Dai then left embarrassedly. Before he left, he said, Zhang Xiaohua, don't worry and recuperate. I will ask the doctor to give you the best medicine. I guarantee that you will be able to walk as soon as possible. Shang Guanyun and Yu Luan comforted Zhang Xiaohua with a few words before following Yu Dai's back and leaving. Only Li Jinfeng was left in the room. The scholar looked at Zhang Xiaohua but didn't know how to comfort him. He only said, Xiaohua, you are a good child. Good people will be rewarded. You will get better soon. I will come to see you again tomorrow. After he finished speaking, he patted Zhang Xiaohua's head and left. When he reached the door, he seemed to have remembered something and turned back to Zhang Xiaohu, saying, Zhang Xiaohu, I came to the escort agency to apologize to you. Last time, I promised you and Xiaohua at the carriage company that I would bring you to the escort agency. I actually forgot about it. I am very sorry. You must forgive me. If I had taken Xiaohua to another place today, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Zhang Xiaohu to reply and directly left the room. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he finally remembered this grudge that he had long forgotten. He shook his head inwardly. If you could have taken Xiaohua to another place, then you would have really apologized to me. Zhang Xiaohua said at the side, Second brother, I was the one who pulled young Master Li here. He also wanted to come and apologize to you because he saw me. This person is really strange. The moment I mentioned waiting for him at the carriage company, he wanted to apologize to me. He even wanted to apologize to you in person. Now he can sleep at night. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he felt a different kind of feeling. Why was there such a huge difference between people? Thinking about Li Jinfeng, and then thinking about Yu Dai, Shang Guanyun, and Yu Luan, they were all really different. The two of them were unfamiliar with Pingyang City. Although it wasn't difficult for them to move around, the current situation made them very hesitant. Should he tell his father and mother in the faraway Guozhuang house about Xiaohua's injury, or should he send Xiaohua home to recuperate? However, he quickly made a decision. Since he had already left the house, he should decide his own fate. If he told his family about Xiaohua's injury, not to mention whether he could continue to stay in Pingyang City, even if they knew, what help could they give him? It would only make them sad and worried. When eldest brother was injured last year, he was treated by the village's veterinarian, Lao Gua. Thinking about Lao Gua's title as a veterinarian, Zhang Xiaohu was sweating in his heart. He was determined not to send Xiaohua home. After making up his mind, Zhang Xiaohu also wanted to hear Zhang Xiaohua's opinion, so he told him. Zhang Xiaohua's opinion was unusually consistent with Zhang Xiaohu's. She shook her little head like a rattle and refused to go home. At this moment, the old doctor entered the house. He looked at Zhang Xiaohua's appearance and took his pulse. He said to Zhang Xiaohu, your brother's injury is very serious. Although there is no bleeding, the heart-wrenching pain is not something an ordinary person can endure. He has already fainted twice just now. Look at his pale face. He should be tired. Bring him back to rest first. Be careful not to touch his arm and fingers. I have already done my best. Also, the third Master Chu has already said that you don't have to worry about the medical fees. I will use the best herbs for your brother. Sigh. Actually, there is no need to use any good herbs. Broken bones are just a matter of nourishment. I have already used tiger bone in the ointment I applied just now. This is the best herb for bone injuries in our escort agency. Later, I will prescribe some calming and nourishing herbs for you, and get the servants to send them to you. Then, he stroked Zhang Xiaohua's head, sighed softly, and turned to leave. Zhang Xiaohu looked at his brother. Sure enough, his face was covered in sweat and his face was pale. His eyes were also filled with fatigue. His heart ached for his brother, and he secretly blamed himself for being careless. At this moment, his parents were not around, and he was the elder brother is like a father. How could he not have noticed his brother's condition? Hence, Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly and carefully carried Zhang Xiaohua from the Kong bed, preparing to move him into his small house. Although Zhang Xiaohu was already very careful, he was a man after all, and had no experience in serving others. He touched Zhang Xiaohua's injury twice in a row. The first time, Zhang Xiaohua didn't notice it and cried out in pain. The second time, he was aroused, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. His sweat still fell like raindrops. Zhang Xiaohu's heart ached for him, and he became even more careful. Fortunately, he walked slowly and didn't touch Zhang Xiaohua's injury again. Only then did Zhang Xiaohu feel slightly relieved. Zhang Xiaohu's small house was very spacious. It was originally meant for 2 people to live in. However, after Zhang Xiaohu won the boxing competition with the armed escort, 6th Master Li transferred the other person to another house. He let Zhang Xiaohu live alone so that he could carefully study his boxing skills. Now, it was just right. The extra Kong bed could be used for Zhang Xiaohua to recuperate. Zhang Xiaohu carefully placed Zhang Xiaohua on the Kong bed and found his own quilt to cover him. Although it was already hot, he was afraid that his brother's injury would worsen, so he still found a slightly thicker quilt for Zhang Xiaohua to use. Not long after, the medical hall servants brought the decocted medicine over. Zhang Xiaohu fed his brother the medicine. Seeing that his brother's face was covered in sweat, he wanted to wash it. However, the servant who tidied up the bowl said that the doctor had forgotten to tell him that the patient's bones had just been reconnected, so he shouldn't move too much during this period of time. He should also endure the sweat on his body for the time being. He shouldn't wipe it off in order to avoid damaging the injury. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he could only give up on the idea. At this time, the sky was gradually turning dark. After sending away the servant who delivered the medicine, Zhang Xiaohu turned back to look at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua's eyes were already blurred, and he gradually fell asleep. That's right. This poor child had suffered so much. He should enjoy his own peace as soon as possible. Zhang Xiaohu looked at his beloved little brother's peaceful sleeping face and the expression that often frowned because of the pain. Sometimes he felt regret, and sometimes he felt distressed. Even when the curtain of night fell, his figure did not move at all. Late at night, Zhang Xiaohu leaned on the side of Zhang Xiaohua's Kong bed. With complicated feelings, he fell into a deep sleep. He knew that he was a deep sleeper and was afraid that his brother would wake him up if something happened. In the past, his brother used to sleep until dawn. Now that he was injured, he didn't know. It was better to be careful, so he deliberately didn't sleep on his Kong bed. Zhang Xiaohua was also a child who made people worry less. From the time he fell asleep at dusk until midnight, he was still frowning. After midnight, he had a calm expression and fell asleep peacefully. At this time, Zhang Xiaohu finally relaxed. Sleepiness surged up, and he leaned on the side of the Kong bed and fell asleep. The night was hazy. The flickering in Zhang Xiaohua's dream was different from usual. The rhythm of the flickering seemed to be a bit rushed. From his left wrist, there was a strange fluctuation that spread throughout his body without anyone noticing. Most of it flowed to the injured area. Many unknown secrets were happening in this darkness that people couldn't see. Some were bad, and some were good. When the morning sun rose, the fluctuation also stopped. Zhang Xiaohua's eyes immediately opened, and he habitually sniffed. He wanted to get up, but the intense pain in his right hand made him cry out, "Aya!" This startled Zhang Xiaohu. He abruptly straightened up and yelled, "Xiaohua, what's wrong?" Seeing his second brother's face and looking at his surroundings, as well as the heart-wrenching pain from his right hand, Zhang Xiaohua finally remembered that this was the Lotus Flower Escort Agency and not the Huanxi Mountain Villa where he worked. Next to him was his second brother, not Ma Jing with smelly feet. Zhang Xiaohua grinned and said, "It's nothing, second brother. I just woke up and accidentally moved my right hand." Zhang Xiaohu said with heartache, "Oh, be careful in the future. Although you've already used a splint, if you use too much strength, the bones can still be dislocated. If they grow crooked, it'll take a lot of effort to reconnect them. I heard that you'll have to break them again and start over. You must not move." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he stuck out his tongue and said, "That's so cruel. Break them and start over? You're not lying, right?" Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile, "Dr. Chung wouldn't lie. He's the best doctor in the Lotus Flower Escort Agency." Only then did Zhang Xiaohua know that the old doctor from yesterday was actually the best doctor in the escort agency. He really was a master who didn't show his face and couldn't tell. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua's stomach suddenly rumbled loudly. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he said with a smile, "Xiaohua, your stomach is rumbling. You must be hungry. I'll go get you something to eat." Zhang Xiaohua blushed a little and said, Hurry and go. Second brother, I didn't eat yesterday afternoon and evening. How can I not be hungry now?" Poor Xiaohua. She didn't eat yesterday afternoon. She originally wanted to freeload some food from her second brother, but when she arrived at the escort agency, she ran into Yu Dei and fought with her. After that, she was injured. Naturally, she didn't eat at night and only drank a bellyful of bitter medicine. Recuperating from injuries naturally required nutrition. It was no wonder that her internal organs complained. Before Zhang Xiaohu could get up and leave, someone knocked on the door. When he opened the door, he saw that it was Yu Luan who had brought the food over. After asking, he found out that it was Yu Dei who had entrusted it to him. That Yu Dei had also suffered internal injuries yesterday and was currently lying on the Kong bed. She couldn't come over to express her apologies, so she had entrusted the food to Yu Luan. Zhang Xiaohu knew the purpose of Yu Luan's visit and didn't stand on ceremony. He took the lunchbox and placed it on the table, preparing to feed Xiaohua. Yu Luan didn't enter the house. He said that he would be back to deliver lunch at noon, and then took his leave. Yu Luan had put in a lot of effort to prepare this breakfast. There were many nourishing ingredients that were easy to digest. Zhang Xiaohua ate it with great relish, and the taste was top-notch. It was even better than the breakfast at Huanqi Villa. Zhang Xiaohua ate it all, and couldn't help but wonder if she would continue to be injured like this. Zhang Xiaohu finished feeding Zhang Xiaohua and saw that his younger brother was enjoying the food. He thought that his weak body needed nourishment. Being able to eat meant that his body was showing signs of recovery. He was secretly happy. After clearing the bowls and chopsticks, he put them aside and said to Zhang Xiaohua, "Xiaohua, you should rest in the house. I'm going out to eat too." After the meal, there are still other matters to attend to at the escort agency. I'll deal with them first. When I'm free, I'll come back. I'll explain everything to Sixth Master Li. I'm sure he'll let me come back earlier. Zhang Xiaohua said, "It's okay, second brother. You do what you need to do. I'll just stay here and slowly recuperate. Please add it to your collection. Thank you." Chapter 97. Zhang Xiaohu gave some instructions and left. After all, he was still an escort in the escort agency and had to do roll call every day. Although he was a newbie and didn't have any missions for the time being and didn't have to travel far like the bodyguards, there were still many things to be done in the escort agency. He had to pay more attention, and there was still a lot to learn. Moreover, he was paid monthly, so how could he not show up? After Zhang Xiaohu left, the room became quiet. Zhang Xiaohua was still a teenager, and it had been a long time since he had slept so quietly. Unfortunately, the pain in his right hand was a constant reminder. Zhang Xiaohua wanted to sleep a little longer, but unfortunately, he would close his eyes and open them again. After opening his eyes and wanting to close them again, he simply didn't want to sleep anymore. Staring straight at the ceiling, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but think of his own fist techniques. During the battle between Zhang Xiaohu and Yu Dai yesterday, although Zhang Xiaohu couldn't fight back against Yu Dai's inner force, if it was purely based on fist techniques, Yu Dai didn't have much of an advantage over Zhang Xiaohu. Thinking of Yu Dai's ferocious inner force, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but feel envious. Zhang Xiaohu only saw the incomparably fast speed of the purple palm and didn't come into contact with the inner force. However, Zhang Xiaohua clearly felt it and felt the invincible force from the palm when the fist came into contact with the palm. It was like a surging wave that surged into his fist. Then, everything that blocked it was destroyed, and he was sent flying by the impact of the inner force. Zhang Xiaohua could still remember the feeling of the inner force entering his body before he fainted. Although Zhang Xiaohua didn't practice martial arts much, he knew that this wasn't an effect that could be achieved by pure strength. Moreover, after Yu Dai used her inner force, the lightness skill that she displayed caught Zhang Xiaohu off guard. All of this was based on inner force. Thinking further, when Hero 1 and Heroine Shui left, they must have used lightness skill. If they didn't have inner force, they wouldn't have been able to use it. Thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but have a burst of longing. When would he be able to practice the true mental cultivation method of inner force? However, according to Yu Dai and Shangguan Yun yesterday, it was impossible for a martial arts practitioner without a background like himself to have the opportunity to come into contact with this kind of secret manual. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohua sighed. It was better to think about how he could learn the fist technique first. If he couldn't even learn the basic fist technique, even if Yu Dai were to teach him, he would still have to disappoint her. In fact, if Zhang Xiaohua knew that Yu Dai had already retracted a portion of her inner force and didn't go all out during the fight with him, he didn't know if he would still have the confidence to continue practicing the fist technique. In fact, when he met Li Jinfeng and heard that Zhang Xiaohu only practiced one set of Liuhe boxing, Zhang Xiaohua already had a vague idea. However, he kept delaying and didn't think about it carefully. Now that he was injured, it was a good opportunity to think about how he could learn the fist technique. His aptitude was not as good as his second brother, Zhang Xiaohu. According to team leader He, his aptitude was not ordinary. Under such circumstances, he had to use 100 times more time and effort to practice than others. However, he didn't know what was wrong with his brain. When he was tested in school when he was young, the teacher said that he wasn't very stupid. Why did he forget everything when he practiced the fist technique? However, fortunately, he could remember some moves. Moreover, it seemed that he was born with these moves and didn't forget them. Otherwise, if he practiced one set and then forgot the other, he wouldn't be able to play the game of drawing water with a bamboo basket every day. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua naturally thought of the fist technique taught by team leader He, Nie Xiao'er, and the other two. Those moves that he had memorized flowed through his mind like water. Any move was as clear as a pebble in clear water. As for the moves that he forgot. He didn't have the slightest impression of them. It was really strange. Zhang Xiaohua practiced martial arts with the people in Huanxi Villa and learned many sets of fist techniques. However, he could only remember about 30 moves. These moves came from different fist techniques and were not related to each other. Even several moves in a set of fist techniques were not connected. Usually, when Zhang Xiaohua practiced several moves in a set of fist techniques, he just randomly and rigidly connected them. Even team leader He curled his lips and shook his head when he saw this. Now, these 30 moves were flowing in his mind. Slowly, Zhang Xiaohua felt a little dizzy and sleepy. Involuntarily, the order of these moves was a little chaotic. Suddenly, in the chaotic moves, two moves were connected very tightly. This unintentional moment made Zhang Xiaohua feel refreshed and awake. When he paid attention again, the two moves had disappeared. This little accident suddenly set off a storm in his mind. What was going on? It was obviously not a set of fist techniques. How could the moves in a set of fist techniques be connected perfectly? Was it his illusion? Or was there another reason? The more Zhang Xiaohua thought about it, the more excited he became. He couldn't help but want to practice the moves, but he forgot that he was still lying on the Kong and his right hand was still in a splint. For a moment, he touched his injury and the piercing pain came as expected. It was so painful that he cried out. At this time, an anxious voice sounded outside the door. Xiaohua, what's wrong? Is it starting to hurt again? When he looked up, Zhang Xiaohu had already run into the hut. Zhang Xiaohua looked at his second brother and said with a grin, "It's nothing, second brother. I accidentally touched my injury just now." Alas, why are you so careless? Zhang Xiaohu complained to Zhang Xiaohua. He carefully wiped the sweat from his forehead with a towel and said, "When we left this morning, I told you to be careful. How could you forget? Don't let your bones grow crooked." Hee, I'll be careful in the future. Seeing his second brother nagging like a mother, Zhang Xiaohua felt very warm and hurriedly comforted Zhang Xiaohu. However, Zhang Xiaohua then asked Zhang Xiaohu in puzzlement, "Second brother, you just went out for a while. Why are you back so soon? Is the escort agency all right?" Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "I've only been at the agency for a month or so. I'm still a newbie, so there's nothing much to do. I'm mainly familiarizing myself with the agency. Because I'm good at fist techniques, Sixth Masterly told me to focus on practicing and rarely looks for me for other matters. Now that he knows that you're injured, he's very reasonable and told me to take care of you. Moreover, Third Master Chu even agreed to let me study at the Martial Arts Center last night. Perhaps Sixth Masterly also knew about it, so he didn't give me much work today. So I came back to see you." Zhang Xiaohua said, "That's good. You can practice in the hut. When I came in yesterday, you seem to have been thinking in the hut." "Oh right, second brother. What kind of work do you escorts usually do?" Zhang Xiaohu smiled wryly and said, "We're just escorts, not bodyguards. Our status in the agency is just a little higher than the servants. We have to do all kinds of work, and there's no way we can be picky." "Oh, what about you? I wanted to ask you yesterday, but I didn't have time. What were you doing at Huanxi Manor?" "Why don't you guess?" Zhang Xiaohua asked Zhang Xiaohu mischievously. "What's there to guess? I remember when Miss Chiu Tong took you away last time. She said that you were planting medicinal herbs?" Zhang Xiaohua said in annoyance. "Why are you still asking when you already know?" "I just wanted to ask if it was really planting medicinal herbs. Are you tired of working there?" Zhang Xiaohu said innocently. Not tired, not tired. Second brother, it's about the same as the crops at home, and it's very relaxing." "Oh right. How's the food at the agency?" "Our manor." Zhang Xiaohua talked non-stop about her life after they parted. She told her second brother everything about her life at the manor. Zhang Xiaohu was filled with joy when he heard this. He was originally worried that his younger brother would be bullied in an unfamiliar place. However, it seemed that he had worried too much. Ma Jing and the others' little tricks were just fertilizers for his younger brother's growth. That feces was extremely smelly, but it was precious fertilizer for the growth of the crops. Without other people's little schemes, how could his younger brother grow so quickly? Thinking back, Zhang Xiaohua's arms had nearly 500 kilograms of strength. It would be a miracle if he didn't go and bully others. Why should he worry about him? Perhaps this was another explanation for his mother's worries when her son traveled 1,000 miles. However, when he heard that He Tianshu from the Misty School was teaching Zhang Xiaohua fist techniques, he was stunned and said, "Xiaohua, there's such a good thing? Someone called you out for free, and you don't even need to work for them?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Yes, that's why I said Sister Chiu Tong is so good." "Oh right, that Sister Manorhead is even better. I've never seen her before, and she even had someone teach me fist techniques. If there's a chance in the future, I must properly thank her." "Oh right, after I finish learning the fist techniques, I'll go and see Sister Manorhead and thank her in person. I also want to learn from Li Jinfeng." I must thank her for her kindness. When he thought that Zhang Xiaohua would never be able to practice fist techniques in this lifetime, Zhang Xiaohu felt a wave of bitterness in his heart. However, he couldn't bear to disturb his younger brother's mood. So he held back his tears and said, "All right, Xiaohua. If there's a grudge, there's an eye for an eye, and a debt for a debt of gratitude. Second brother will wait for the day when you finish learning the fist techniques." After he finished speaking, he patted Zhang Xiaohua's head and got up to get something to hide his tears. Zhang Xiaohua spoke happily and naturally didn't notice his second brother's abnormality. He said, "Perhaps I might not be able to finish learning the fist techniques." Zhang Xiaohu was stunned and quickly turned around to say, "Xiaohua, don't worry about your injury. The doctor said that you'll be fine after resting for a while. When the time comes, you'll be able to practice the fist techniques again." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "That's not it, second brother. I also heard what the doctor said yesterday. This injury will only take a few more days to rest, but, Zhang Xiaohu anxiously said, "But what?" At this time, Zhang Xiaohua's pale face flushed red and said, "Second brother, my aptitude isn't as good as yours. After learning the fist techniques for a month, I can defeat an armed escort who has been learning for several years. The fist techniques that I'm learning are incomplete, and I can only learn a few moves in one set." When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, his heart settled and he said, "That's nothing. I'm only good at fist techniques. They didn't use internal energy to fight me. If it was a real fight, how could I be their opponent? AI, this internal energy cultivation method. Also, if your aptitude is poor, it's fine. Just practice more. If others practice once, then practice 10 times. If it's not enough, then practice 20 times. 100 times. I don't believe that you can't master it." Hearing her second brother's high-spirited words, Zhang Xiaohua still said embarrassedly, "Second brother, you don't understand. Even if I practice 100 times, when I wake up the next day, I'll still forget everything." "Ah, is there such a thing? You really practiced 100 times?" Zhang Xiaohu was really puzzled. "Not 100 times. I've practiced 40 to 50 times, but I just can't remember." Zhang Xiaohua said gloomily, "That's really a strange thing. I heard that for these ordinary fist techniques, even if a normal person practiced 10 times, they would still be able to roughly remember them. But, second brother, there's also a strange thing." "What's strange?" "That's right. No matter what fist technique it is, as long as I practice it once, when I wake up the next day, I'll remember as much as I can. I won't forget it again. But even if I practice it 50 times, I won't be able to remember a single move." Zhang Xiaohu's heart moved and he said, "So it's like this. Xiaohua, maybe you're really not suitable for practicing martial arts. How about this, when you're better, don't practice martial arts anymore. How about you do something else? How about you take care of flowers and plant grass? In any case, Huanxi Mountain Villa needs such technical talents." "No, second brother. The treatment of technical talents depends on the villa master's vision. If she doesn't like you, your treatment will be lower. Moreover, I heard that after retirement, the standard of monthly salary is not as high as that of strength type. I think I'd better practice more. If the monthly salary given by Huanxi Mountain Villa is good, then I'll stay there until I retire. Otherwise, I'll find a place to jump ship." Zhang Xiaohua was full of confidence. "It's just a joke. Please don't mind it." Zhang Xiaohu saw that Zhang Xiaohua was determined, so he didn't dare to persuade him. He was afraid that he would know that his injury was very serious. He said, "Then it's up to you. However, it's always good to learn more. The current medical insurance and pension system is not complete. It's better to consider more for yourself." Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile, "I know, second brother. By the way, I just found out. Forget it. Let's talk about it after I figure it out." Zhang Xiaohu saw that he wanted to say something but stopped, so he didn't ask. However, Zhang Xiaohua asked again, "Second brother, yesterday I heard that you only practice Liuha boxing. I thought you were concentrating on a set of fist techniques. I don't know if my understanding is correct, or do you have another reason? Can you tell me?" Looking at Zhang Xiaohua's calm face, Zhang Xiaohu found it funny. Not to mention that this wasn't a big secret. Even if it was a big secret, how could he not tell his little brother who could no longer practice martial arts? He said with a smile, Xiaohua, you're right. It's better to have nothing than to have something substandard. Actually, I've also practiced other fist techniques, such as Luohan boxing. However, after practicing it, I found something strange. Every set of fist techniques has both defense and offense. It's just that the ratio of offense and defense is different. Moreover, the two sets of fist techniques attack position, and defense method are similar. The only difference is the posture. So I thought, is every set of fist techniques like this? A person's body is only so big. The attacking and defending parts are also only so big. Does every set of fist techniques attack and defend these parts? It's just that the moves are different. Following this train of thought, I learned a few other fist techniques from others. For example, Lang Family Fist, Buddha's Palm, etc., which confirmed my guess. So, in the end, I didn't learn any other fist techniques and only focused on this Liuha boxing. First, this Liuha boxing was the first fist technique I practiced. Second, this fist technique's moves are very complicated. It covers almost all the positions that can be used for defense and offense. After learning it, other fist techniques were included as well. Think about it. In a month, I only focused on learning this set of fist techniques. I know the moves of this Liuha boxing like the back of my hand. It's better than other people learning this set and that set. The only difference is that some of the moves are different, but the effects of attack and defense don't improve at all. A lot of time is wasted on useless moves. Actually, a real competition also proves this point. If we only compare the exquisiteness of the fist techniques, without using internal energy, just practicing this set of Liuha boxing is enough to compete with people who have practiced many sets of fist techniques without being at a disadvantage. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she was overwhelmed with shock. This second brother was truly a genius. Actually, this wasn't only Zhang Xiaohua's point of view. If there was any martial arts master who heard Zhang Xiaohu's words, they would treat him as a close friend. This fist technique was nothing more than that. The various schools in the Jianghu only had different moves. When it came to the essence, it was nothing more than attack and defense. This Zhang Xiaohu, who had only entered the sect for a month, had such an understanding. He could only be described as a genius. However, this Lotus Flower escort agency was only a small corner of the world. How could there be a master here? It could only let this bright pearl, Zhang Xiaohu, be covered in dust. Thinking about Zhang Xiaohu's words, they were truly insightful. However, this was Zhang Xiaohu's cultivation experience. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't use it at all. Based on his aptitude of only remembering a few moves of each set of fist techniques, how could he achieve both offense and defense? AI, how depressing. Why was the gap between people so big? However, just practicing this fist technique isn't enough. Zhang Xiaohu continued, on one hand, without the coordination of internal energy, this fist technique is a useless paper tiger. You also saw it yesterday. As long as Dai used her internal energy, this fist technique would immediately fall into a disadvantage. In front of absolute power, any gorgeous moves would be reduced to ashes. On the other hand, the 6-he fist that I'm practicing is only a fist technique that is very widely spread in the Jianghu. I heard that there are many schools in the Jianghu, and the fist techniques they practice are completely different from this one. The positions of attack and defense are even more mysterious and profound. If this ordinary 6-he fists were to meet their secret fist technique, I wonder what the result would be? I'm looking forward to it. I wonder what kind of fist technique is taught in the Misty School that's close by? Zhang Xiaohu looked out of the window and was at a loss. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu's depression, Zhang Xiaohua comforted him. Second brother, don't be discouraged. With your aptitude, if the Misty School finds out, they will definitely take you in. Zhang Xiaohu said, I know. Xiaohua, I don't need you to comfort me. I'm already very satisfied to be able to learn this fist technique today. I don't have any more extravagant hopes. Chapter 98. Zhang Xiaohua said slyly, only when there is hope will there be motivation. Didn't Big Brother want to marry eldest sister-in-law? That's why he had the motivation to do something good in the end. Second brother, you must have something you want to pursue. Bang! Zhang Xiaohu knocked on Zhang Xiaohua's head and said, You're so mischievous. Don't worry, your second brother's heart is with the entire Jianghu. I will definitely save the common people. That's right. Actually, there's an important reason why I want to study at the Martial Arts Center. It's possible to learn internal strength cultivation methods there. This may be my only chance. Zhang Xiaohu continued to explain to Zhang Xiaohua. Really, second brother? If you can learn internal strength cultivation methods at the Martial Arts Center, then can you teach me? Zhang Xiaohua was happy when she heard this and looked at Zhang Xiaohu expectantly. Zhang Xiaohu couldn't bear to disappoint Zhang Xiaohua and promised, "Look at what you're saying. Xiaohua, as long as second brother learns it, I'll definitely teach you if I can. Why would I hide it from you?" However, Zhang Xiaohu gave her a heads up. Although this martial arts center can teach internal strength cultivation methods, it also depends on the person. I heard that not only does one have to have aptitude, but one's background and whether or not they have a close relationship with the escort agency will also be considered. Sigh, even if I can go in to study, whether or not I'll have the opportunity to come in contact with internal strength cultivation methods is also a problem. Zhang Xiaohua disagreed and said, "Second brother's aptitude is so good and our family background is also clean. Although we don't have a close relationship with the escort agency, won't we have it after we study? Maybe sixth masterly saw your aptitude and put in a good word for you." Zhang Xiaohu was very clear about this and said, "I heard that the aptitude for practicing internal strength cultivation methods is different from practicing fist techniques. Fist techniques can be learned by anyone, but internal strength is different. Some people may not have the slightest improvement after practicing for many years, but some people have great achievements once they start. Whether or not I have the aptitude can only be proven through practice. I think you should have no problem. Second brother, I have faith in you," Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Moreover, the internal strength cultivation methods of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency should be good. Otherwise, with Yu Day's level, the purple sand palm he displayed yesterday was already very powerful, yet he still wants to come here to learn it. And Shangguan Yun also probably knows internal strength. Oh, and Yu Luan. He also hasn't learned internal strength. His purpose in coming to the Martial Arts Center must be to learn internal strength cultivation methods. Didn't you see how he flattered Yu Dai yesterday? It was as if he was meeting his own master. It's all because of the internal strength cultivation methods. Zhang Xiaohu also sighed and said, "Yes, he's also a pitiful person. For something that others can't pursue, he abandoned his dignity. It's hard on him." Zhang Xiaohua mocked. "Dignity? Hard on him? When we were in the car together, I saw that he was flattering Shangguan Yun. Yesterday, he looked like he was familiar with the road. He might not have abandoned himself." Zhang Xiaohu said with a straight face, "Xiaohua, don't talk about others like that. Everyone has their own life and is walking their own path. Just walk your own path. Why look at others?" Zhang Xiaohua said submissively, "Umitba, your younger brother has learned." After saying that, he laughed loudly. Zhang Xiaohu also laughed happily. The days accompanied by relatives were always short. Soon, it was noon. Yu Luan arrived as promised. He did not disappoint Zhang Xiaohua's expectations and brought delicious food. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua was like a god. With Zhang Xiaohu's help, he ate it all. His appetite was surprisingly good. Even Zhang Xiaohu was surprised. Was this really the appetite of a wounded person? After eating, Zhang Xiaohua, who had not rested in the morning, was a little sleepy. Zhang Xiaohu put him to sleep. When Zhang Xiaohua fell asleep, Zhang Xiaohu slowly practiced his Liuha boxing move by move in the room. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was slow. He carefully savored the essence of it. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu squinting his eyes and enjoying it, it was as if he was drinking a pot of wine. He really entered a wonderful state. Zhang Xiaohua, who was sleeping, drowsily entered the same state as in the morning. The more than 30 boxing moves that he had learned flowed in his mind again. It was as if there was a small Zhang Xiaohua in the water, posing in different postures. Like a phantom, the scenes flashed. After a long time, the phantom was a little messy. Occasionally, there would be two postures that were perfectly linked. Immediately, like lightning, it stirred up huge waves in Zhang Xiaohua's heart. Zhang Xiaohua was immediately awakened. He thought about the dream just now. Just like in the morning, he could not find any trace of it. However, fortunately, there were only about 30 moves. At worst, he could try them one by one. Anyway, he had to lie on the Kong for the next half a year. He had plenty of time. Now that he was not sleepy, he might as well think about it first. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua then noticed that Zhang Xiaohu was also slowly practicing his boxing moves in the empty space in the room. He looked and could not help but be moved. A thought flashed across his mind. The more than 30 moves that he remembered, could it be that they were part of a set of boxing moves? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was not very possible. This idea was too outrageous. A complete set of boxing moves was broken up and scattered among countless boxing moves. Who would do such a boring thing? They must have nothing better to do. However, this idea was like a seed that was planted in his heart. He would think about it from time to time. No matter how he drove it away, he could not drive it away. He was no longer in the mood to watch Zhang Xiaohu practice. Suddenly, he thought again. Since he could not learn a complete set of boxing moves, why not compile the moves that he remembered into his own set of boxing moves? Walk his own path and practice his own boxing moves. But would this work? Immediately, he was convinced by his own shocking idea. Why would it not work? Just now in the hazy state, weren't there 2 moves that were linked together? Anyway, there were only about 30 moves. Since he had nothing better to do, why not give it a try? Perhaps he could succeed? Zhang Xiaohua was a little restless. His heart was beating violently. The weather was very hot, and he was covered with a thin blanket, but he still felt a little cold. Was it because of his excitement? Newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. Only a half-baked martial arts practitioner like Zhang Xiaohua, who had not been taught by a real master, could do such a shocking thing. If He Tianshu knew, his first reaction would be to touch Zhang Xiaohua's forehead to see if he had a fever. Then, he would cry and run to Oyin, asking Oyin to quickly send Zhang Xiaohua to the martial arts hall of the Misty School, so that he could learn martial arts with 4- or 5-year-old children. Furthermore, He Tianshu would often use this sentence to teach the younger generation. Self-study is really dangerous. You must receive formal education. There is no future. Fundamental boxing moves like Liuhe Fist and Luohan Fist were widely spread in the Jianghu. Which one of them was not the essence that had been honed by countless elites over countless years? It was very difficult to change a single move. Zhang Xiaohua actually had the whimsical idea of plucking a part of it to form a new set of boxing moves. If Zhang Xiaohua said that he could do it, then everyone in the Jianghu would laugh. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua did not know this. At this moment, he was playing with the move blocks with great interest, trying to link the unrelated moves together. Originally, he thought that it would be a simple task with only 30 moves, but when combined together, it became complicated. Not long after, Zhang Xiaohua felt a little dizzy. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua did not study combinatorial mathematics, so he did not know that if these 30 moves were combined together, it would be quite a big project. Gradually, he wanted to give up, but when he saw that Zhang Xiaohu was concentrating on repeating 1 or 2 moves, thinking carefully, he could not help but be stubborn. They were brothers from the same mother, so he did not believe that he did not have second brother's cleverness. He started to compete with these moves. Sure enough, not long after, Zhang Xiaohua found 2 moves that could be perfectly linked together. Seeing the first glimmer of hope, Zhang Xiaohua's spirits were greatly lifted. He tirelessly began a second attempt. Unfortunately, this time, he was not as lucky as the first time. He practically flipped through these moves a few times, but he still could not find the 3rd or 4th move that could be perfectly linked together. Zhang Xiaohua once again sank into deep thought. Was his train of thought wrong? However, since there were 2 moves that could be linked together, it meant that this path was feasible. Then, what else had not been considered? Suddenly, another very strange but also very reasonable idea came up. These moves that he had learned were only a part of a complete set of boxing techniques. There were still many moves that he had not learned. If he wanted to completely link these moves together, he had to learn the remaining moves. However, from Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts experience in this short month, if he wanted to find the remaining moves, he had to learn more boxing techniques. Every time he learned a set of boxing techniques, it depended on his memory. Based on his memory, how much he could remember would indicate how many moves he needed to add these moves to this incomplete boxing technique. But how many moves did this boxing technique have? Zhang Xiaohua naturally did not know, but this problem was easy to solve. When all the moves were perfectly linked, then the boxing technique would be completed. There would be as many moves as there were. However, shortly after, Zhang Xiaohua was stumped by another problem. How was she going to learn this boxing technique? Looking at He Tianxu's expression, it seemed that he was already disappointed in her and would not teach her any other boxing techniques. Even if she went to beg him, thinking of her own aptitude, Zhang Xiaohua felt a little embarrassed. She always forgot all the boxing techniques that he taught her. How could she still have the cheek to ask him to continue teaching her? Even if He Tianxu was willing to teach her, but would his boxing technique be able to satisfy her needs? Would it be able to withstand her terrifying memory? It seemed that she still had to find another way. But another way? Zhang Xiaohua could only smile bitterly. She had painstakingly come to Pingyang City and spent so much effort before she was lucky enough to get He Tianxu to teach her the boxing technique. If she were to find someone else to teach her, wouldn't that be a fool's dream? Of course, she could also get her second brother to teach her. However, just as this thought popped up, it was extinguished by Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohu had his own path to walk and loyalty was his virtue. She could not possibly destroy his chastity because of her own wishes. Although Zhang Xiaohua knew that if she were to ask, Zhang Xiaohu would definitely give up his obsession of learning only one boxing technique. Sigh, although learning was a form of belief, it was also a difficult thing. Forget it. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and a line of words appeared in her mind. When a car reaches a mountain, there must be a road. Where there is a road, there must be a speeding car. It was the advertisement for the speeding carriage company. She would think about it again after she had recovered from her injuries. Perhaps then, she would be able to find her own way out. Zhang Xiaohua lay on the Kong bed and looked at the ceiling in boredom. Her right hand was still in pain, and she could not move it at all. The days of recuperation were really hard to bear, except for the delicious food. Zhang Xiaohu, who was lying on the ground, was still very focused on figuring out his set of Liuhe boxing. Zhang Xiaohua was very puzzled. Second brother had already learned this set of boxing technique for more than a month. Why was he still so interested in practicing it today? If it were her, she would definitely not be able to do it. Perhaps this was the difference between humans. At this moment, there was the sound of someone knocking on the door. Zhang Xiaohu stopped his moves and went to look at the door. It turned out that Li Jinfeng, Zhang Xiaohua, had come to visit Zhang Xiaohua. Li Jinfeng said the moment he entered, "I'm sorry, Xiaohua. I still have homework in the morning, so I can't take leave. I came in the afternoon when I was free. How are you feeling today?" Zhang Xiaohua was quite touched and said, "Brother Li, if you are busy, you don't have to come and visit me. My injuries won't recover in a short time. I don't feel much today, just that it still hurts." Li Jinfeng sat at the side of the Kong bed and looked at Zhang Xiaohu, saying, "No matter what, we came to Pingyang City together. It can be considered fate. To be honest, although my family background is better than yours, it's not that much better. I'm also a few years older and studied literature. I can't compare to you guys who practice martial arts. I'm very envious of you guys for being able to freely roam the martial arts world. Moreover, I'm the only son in my family and have no siblings. Seeing that you two brothers have a good relationship, I'm even more envious. That's why I want to get closer to you guys. Brother Xiaohu, you won't mind, right?" Zhang Xiaohu was stunned and hurriedly said, "Young Master Li, you are too polite. You are a scholar and have a good future ahead of you. How can we compare ourselves to you? If you want to visit us more often, we can't ask for anything more. Why would we mind?" Li Jinfeng smiled and said, "Don't you, just say you. Don't stand on ceremony with me. I really want to visit you guys more often in the future to chat." Zhang Xiaohua happily said, "Okay, Brother Li, I like lively places the most. If you have time, come more often." Li Jinfeng happily said, "Okay, Xiaohua. Actually, when you go out, it's really hard to find a few people who are pleasing to the eye and can talk to you." "That's right. I just saw someone selling snacks on the street and casually bought some. I just don't know if you can eat it with your current injury." As he said this, Li Jinfeng took out a small cloth bag from his chest and took out some snacks. I can eat. I can eat anything." Seeing that there was something delicious, Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly said. Zhang Xiaohu took it and carefully fed it to Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua happily ate it and said, "Thank you, brotherly. This snack is really delicious. I've never eaten it before. I like to eat it the most. It seems that the doctor didn't tell me not to eat it. A good appetite is good for the body." Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua liked it, Li Jinfeng felt very happy. It was as if he saw himself when he was young. Then, he took out a shabby book from his chest and put it on the Kong, saying, "This is a boxing manual that I found when I was reading in the academy. It seems to have been forgotten by someone else. It's useless to leave it with me, so I brought it to you. Anyway, you're recuperating. When you're bored, you can read it to pass the time." Zhang Xiaohua originally thought that it was something good, but when she saw that it was a book, she couldn't help but say with a bitter face, "Why is it a book? Brotherly, I'm not literate. I learned a little before, but I don't think I'm good at reading." Oh? Li Jinfeng was also very embarrassed and said, "I neglected this. I didn't think of this section. Hee, but, Xiaohua, this is only a boxing manual. I roughly flipped through it. There aren't all words inside. There are also many diagrams. As for the words, there aren't many. They're all for explanation. Maybe you can understand them?" Boxing manual? Zhang Xiaohua stared blankly and asked strangely, "What's a boxing manual?" Hearing this, Li Jinfeng also stared blankly and said, "You don't know what a boxing manual is?" Zhang Xiaohua asked back, "I don't know. Why do I have to know?" Li Jinfeng smiled and said, "A boxing manual is a book that records fist techniques. I thought that you martial artists all know. So it's not like this." Zhang Xiaohua blushed and said, "Didn't I just start practicing martial arts? Not everyone knows about boxing manuals. There are always exceptions. Second brother, do you know? I've heard people talk about it. You can say that I know." Zhang Xiaohua's face was also a bit hot. Li Jinfeng knew that these two brothers had just come from the countryside and didn't understand many things. He didn't ridicule them and said, "Although I don't practice martial arts, I've read a lot of outside and unofficial history. I know a lot. It's said that in the past, the teaching of fist techniques was passed down by word of mouth. It was kept secret, but if the inheritor didn't learn it, or if the inheritor suddenly disappeared before the inheritor learned it, then the fist technique would be lost. So later on, smart people recorded the fist techniques and martial arts in words and diagrams so that it would be convenient for the inheritor to pass it down. Thus, there were boxing manuals. I think there were also some knife manuals, spear manuals, leg manuals, whip manuals, etc., but I've never seen them before." Zhang Xiaohua's eyes lit up and asked, "Brotherly, have you ever seen a boxing manual?" Li Jinfeng stared blankly and said, "What's a boxing manual?" Zhang Xiaohua said, "It's a book that records internal strength." Li Jinfeng shook his head and said, "I've never seen it before. But it's not like it doesn't exist." Oh, Zhang Xiaohua shook her head in disappointment. If there was this boxing manual, wouldn't that be wonderful? She and her second brother could follow the instructions to learn internal strength. However, he immediately became wild with joy. Even if he couldn't learn internal strength, learning boxing was also not bad. He was just thinking about how to learn boxing, and now Li Jinfeng gave him a boxing manual. His character couldn't be too good. With this boxing manual, wouldn't he be able to learn by himself and not find someone else to teach him? All problems would be easily solved. Chapter 99. However, when Zhang Xiaohua excitedly took the worn-out manual and flipped it open, she suddenly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was inside? Little people were gesturing with their fists and feet, and there were many arrows drawn on the book. There were also many small words written on the side. No matter how she looked at it, it seemed like they recognized her, but she didn't recognize them. How could she read it? She had no choice but to close the manual again. Only then did she see that there were 3 big words written on the cover of the book. Only one of them she recognized was, too. Zhang Xiaohua asked suspiciously, "Brotherly, what manual is this?" Li Jinfeng smiled and pointed at the 3 big words. "Isn't it written on it? Erlang Fist." "Oh, so it's Erlang Fist." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and thought about it. She had learned this set of fist techniques before, and she had learned 2 moves in it. Hence, She flipped open the manual again and searched page by page. However, those moves didn't look like they were learned by her. This was strange. Could it be that this wasn't Erlang Fist, or that she didn't learn Erlang Fist? Zhang Xiaohu looked at Zhang Xiaohua flipping through the manual and asked curiously, Xiaohua, why are you flipping through it again and again? Aren't you supposed to look at this manual page by page? Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, Second brother, I have learned this Erlang Fist before, but why can't I find the 2 moves that I remember? Ah, you only remember 2 moves in this set of fist techniques? Zhang Xiaohu asked in surprise. Yeah, I don't know what's going on either. I can only remember 2 of the moves, and it seems like these 2 moves aren't connected together. Zhang Xiaohua said embarrassedly. Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, It's okay. It's good that you can remember. Look at me. I only know 1 set of fist techniques. Let me take a look at the manual. After speaking, Zhang Xiaohu took the manual from Zhang Xiaohua's hands and looked at it carefully page by page. Then, he used his hands to gesture something. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohu said, I understand. Xiaohua, I don't know if the name recorded in this manual is Erlang Fist, but it is indeed a fist technique. Look at the first move. Isn't there an arrow pointing upwards? That means that the left hand is striking upwards. The move you remember is a series of movements from the chest to the position, so it doesn't look like any picture. Zhang Xiaohua thought about it and said, Second brother, what you said makes sense. Let me take a look. And so, Zhang Xiaohua flipped through the manual a few more times. When she reached a certain part, she suddenly cried out in surprise, Second brother, I found it. It's this move. That's right. I remember this move. But it seems like this side of the body is a bit stronger, and the position of this fist strike is a bit lower. When Zhang Xiaohu came over to take a look, he added, But this should be Erlang Fist. Captain, he said that a lot of the fist techniques I remember are different from what he taught me, especially the details. It doesn't matter. It's good that you can fight. Of course, Zhang Xiaohu didn't care about these details. The doctor already said that Zhang Xiaohua couldn't practice martial arts anymore, so it didn't matter what he said now. Zhang Xiaohu looked at the page and said, Oh, you should be right. Let me show you. After he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaohu slowly displayed the move according to the manual. Zhang Xiaohua said, That's right, second brother. It's this move. Hee. So the manual is actually such a good thing. But what's written in this book? Zhang Xiaohu pointed at the small words on the side and asked Li Jinfeng. Li Jinfeng took the manual and read to the words, Sea hits people like walking, looks at people like wormwood, but goes up like the sound of the wind, rises and falls like an arrow piercing through the air. The ingenuity of this is divinity. Those who don't know the true art will not be able to understand it. Those who don't learn it orally will not be able to enter this realm. This sect and this technique are based on righteousness. If one wants to walk the right path, the 4 C's of the world are open to all. Knowing one's own thoughts is based on the 5 virtues. Those who can walk the right path can walk the right path. Some people who learn this fist technique will have their upper, middle, and lower body tied together. Their hands and feet are in sync. If they come into contact with the opponent, once they move, their feet will move. If they want to advance, the hands and feet will advance first, the feet first, the hands second, is the most important thing. Zhang Xiaohu and his brother both had a headache. They asked together, What does this mean? Thus, Li Jinfeng guessed the literal meaning and explained it to them. Zhang Xiaohua lowered her head and didn't say anything. She thought for a bit and said, When Captain He taught me these words, he seemed to have said it before, but I don't remember it clearly. That's right. How much did Zhang Xiaohua remember? Zhang Xiaohu praised, It's really good to have this manual. It's like having a master by your side teaching you. Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything. She lowered her head and thought about something. Then, she looked up at Li Jinfeng and said, Brother Li, I want to learn how to read. Can you teach me? Li Jinfeng was very puzzled. He looked at Zhang Xiaohua's bright eyes and said with expectation, Xiaohua, why do you suddenly want to learn how to read? Oh, do you want to look at this manual yourself? Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, Yes, Brother Li. You're studying literature, so you might not know. It's very difficult to find a martial arts master to teach you fist techniques. Moreover, My aptitude for fist techniques is not good. I can't learn every set of fist techniques. I don't think there's a master willing to teach me. If I want to practice more fist techniques, I can only learn by myself. But I don't know the words on this manual. If I practice it wrongly, it won't do. So, I want to learn how to read from you. So, what do you think? Li Jinfeng said. No problem, Xiaohua. Anyway, you've been resting on the Kong bed during this time. I gave you the manual to help you pass the time. If you can read on one hand, you'll gain experience, and on the other hand, you'll kill two birds with one stone. How can I not agree? But, Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly said. But what, brotherly? Li Jinfeng looked at Zhang Xiaohua's anxious appearance and smiled, saying, there's no problem in teaching you how to read. We'll start in a moment. What I said is that if you only rely on the manual to practice, you'll only be building a cart behind closed doors. It won't be as good as a master's teaching. After all, a master has practiced this fist technique himself. As the saying goes, true knowledge comes from practice. Without a master's teaching, won't you suffer from qi deviation? Suffer from qi deviation? Then what should I do? Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. To the side, Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly said, it doesn't matter, Xiaohua. First, learn how to read. First, learn this Erlang fist manual and see if there's any difference between it and your own. You can slowly experience it. As for the matter of qi deviation, I think that when you learn a new fist technique, I'll go find an escort or someone who has learned this fist technique before. First, I'll ask if there's anything to pay attention to. Presumably, it'll be much safer. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, second brother's idea is really good. I'll start learning how to read now. Zhang Xiaohua was so happy that he forgot himself and couldn't help but move his body. Aya! Piercing pain came and Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but cry out. Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jinfeng hurriedly walked to the Kong bed. They didn't dare to touch Zhang Xiaohua's injured arm and only held him down, saying, be careful, don't move around. If your fingers grow crooked, you won't be able to practice your fist technique. And so, while Zhang Xiaohua was resting, he began his journey of learning how to read. Li Jinfeng was also a person who liked teaching others. He was very happy to have such a large student and was actually in high spirits. Every 2 days, he would come to disturb Zhang Xiaohu once. This annoyed Zhang Xiaohu a little. However, Li Jinfeng was kind enough to teach his younger brother for free, so Zhang Xiaohu couldn't say anything. He had no choice but to change the place where he practiced his fist technique to the escort agency's plaza. The way he practiced his fist technique was a little different from other people's, and sometimes there would be a lot of people coming to watch. It was really strange. On this day, Zhang Xiaohu was practicing in the plaza and was a little impatient. He was just about to finish when someone suddenly ran over and said that the third Master Chu had invited him to the martial arts center. Zhang Xiaohu was surprised and then overjoyed. He guessed that it was about going to the martial arts center to practice. He hurriedly thanked the person who came, tidied up, and went to the backyard. The third Master Chu's house was on the side of the martial arts center. It was also an abode. At this time, Yu Dei was chatting with the third Master Chu. She heard the third Master Chu ask Yu Dei with concern, Dei, how is your internal injury? Yu Dei said, thank you for your concern, Grandpa Chu. I'm almost fully recovered. The third Master Chu looked at Yu Dei's rosy face and nodded, saying, the path of practicing internal strength is particular about avoiding arrogance and impatience. It has to be done step by step. You have always been impatient, so I'm afraid there will be setbacks. As the saying goes, to be a man is to practice martial arts. If you want to learn martial arts well, you must first be a good person. Otherwise, it will be easy to draw water with a bamboo basket. Yu Dei hurriedly nodded and said, thank you, uncle, for your guidance. Then, the third Master Chu said, Dei, this time you did not do well in your competition with Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu is just a new bodyguard. No matter how high his martial arts are or how good his aptitude is, compared to you, he is still far inferior. Why can't you see other people's vanity? Fine, you can teach him a lesson. But why did you use your internal strength in a fist competition? This is a big taboo in a competition. It will be looked down upon by the people of Jianghu. Fortunately, this is an escort agency's matter and outsiders don't know about it. Otherwise, it will affect your reputation. You must be careful in the future. Yu Dei's face turned red and said, Grandpa Chu, didn't I just get used to it? I forgot everything around me and used the purple sand palm. You also know that I have practiced the purple sand palm for over 20 years. I am used to it. Sometimes, I use it unconsciously. The third Master Chu said, Yes, that makes sense. However, this Zhang Xiaohu actually forced you to use the purple sand palm. That is quite interesting. I want to see how far he can go. Yes, what do you think of this person? Yu Dei thought for a moment and said, From the exchange of fists, I can see that he does have some real skills. He was able to understand the essence of the six-joint fists when he just started learning it. He even has his own understanding of it. He is a talent that can be nurtured. However, this fist without internal strength is like a tiger without teeth. There is nothing to be afraid of. Thinking back, when I used my internal strength, Zhang Xiaohu was as clumsy as a baby, whether it was in terms of speed or strength. The third Master Chu snorted and said, He naturally can't be compared to you. You have been practicing the purple sand palm passed down in your family since you were young. You have been immersed in it for decades. It would be strange if you couldn't beat him. Fortunately, that palm of yours was blocked by his younger brother. If it had landed on his chest, he would have died long ago, and you would have been involved in a lawsuit. Although killing is not a taboo in the Jianghu, it is not right to kill someone in broad daylight in Pingyang City. Although it is not a big deal, it can cause trouble for your father, right? Yu Dei hurriedly stood up again and said, Dei understands. Thank you for your advice, uncle. The third Master Chu stroked his beard and said, Fortunately, his younger brother punched in time. Your control of your internal strength was good, and you retracted it at the right time. You risked your own internal injuries and didn't make a big mistake. At least you handled it well. At this moment, Yu Dei had a strange expression on her face and said, Grandpa Chu, I still know how to control my internal strength. If I had simply retracted it myself, I definitely wouldn't have suffered internal injuries. Oh? The third Master Chu was a little puzzled and asked, Could there be other inside information? After that, the third Master Chu slapped his head and said, Oh right, how could I forget? This is Zhang Xiaohu's younger brother. When he came to the escort agency with him for the test, he lifted a 500-kilogram stone weight. No wonder you suffered internal injuries. The force from his fist rushed into your body and definitely disrupted your meridians. Yu Dei said with lingering fear, Yes, when that force rushed into my palm, I was so scared that my soul almost flew out of my body. Luckily, it was pure strength. If it was internal strength, it would have invaded my meridians while I was retracting my internal strength. I wouldn't have suffered such internal injuries. The third Master Chu patted him on the shoulder and said, Now you don't have to worry. His younger brother's palm has been crippled, and he can't practice martial arts in this life. Just relying on the innate strength of his left hand, he won't be able to do much. What a pity. However, I heard from the people in Huanxi Manor that his aptitude is worse than the average person. He learned fist techniques from a person in the manor called He Tianshu. After a month of learning, he didn't even manage to learn a complete set of fist techniques. He's really stupid. With his palm crippled, he can't practice martial arts. It can't be said that it's a pity. Perhaps there will be other opportunities. Yu Dei didn't quite believe it and asked, This person's aptitude is that bad? His older brother is pretty much a genius. The third Master Chu smiled and said, I heard it from a disciple of the Misty School who was with them. It shouldn't be wrong. I originally thought that he was a rare innate strength and had a bright future. I felt that it was a pity. But after hearing this, Just as he was speaking, there was a sudden knock on the door. The third Master Chu asked, Who is it? The person outside the door replied, I'm Zhang Xiaohu, third Master Chu. You asked me to come, right? When the third Master Chu heard this, he exchanged glances with Yu Dei and said loudly, Zhang Xiaohu, come in quickly. Zhang Xiaohu pushed the door open and entered the room. When he saw Yu Dei in the room, he was slightly shocked. He first greeted the third Master Chu, and then Yu Dei. Yu Dei hurriedly returned the greeting and said, Zhang Xiaohu, I haven't seen you for a few days. How is your brother's injury? I've been recuperating in my room for the past few days and didn't have time to visit. Please forgive me. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly said, It's fine. My brother's recovery is also very good. These few days, he doesn't feel as much pain as before, so he should be fine soon. Young Master Yu, you don't need to worry too much. But how is young Master Yu's body? Yu Dai smiled and said, thanks to Brother Zhang, he's getting better day by day. He can go out today. Quickly go to the third Master Chu to receive your punishment. The third Master Chu continued, that's right. Yu Dai just kept telling me that it was his fault. But, Zhang Xiaohu, swords and spears have no eyes. It's hard to avoid mistakes in martial arts. I hope you can forgive him. Zhang Xiaohu said, Third Master Chu, young Master Yu, please don't worry. My brother and I both understand this principle, especially Xiaohua. He doesn't have the slightest bit of resentment, so there's no need to talk about forgiveness. Ha ha ha. The third Master Chu laughed out loud and said, Zhang Xiaohu, you and Yu Dai will both be the backbone of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency in the future. There will be many collaborations between the two of you. I'm also very happy to see that the two of you have buried the hatchet. Zhang Xiaohu and Yu Dai also laughed on the side. Then, the three of them sat down. The third Master Chu said, Zhang Xiaohu, I asked you to come over this time because I wanted to tell you that I've already taken care of the matters at Huanxi Mountain Villa. Your brother can stay at Huanxi Mountain Villa and work there in the future. As long as he's willing, he can work there for as long as he wants. I had to risk my old face to find their mountain villa lord to agree. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly stood up and said, Then I'll have to thank the third Master Chu. The third Master Chu said, It's what I should do. Quickly sit down. After Zhang Xiaohu sat down, he continued, For now, let your brother recuperate at the escort agency. It won't be too late to go back when his injuries get better. As for your matter, I've already discussed it with old Sixth Li tomorrow. You can come to the martial arts training hall to listen to lectures and practice martial arts. However, you still have to work as an escort. If there's anything to do, you still have to go out. But if you don't have anything to do, you can stay at the martial arts training hall to study. What do you think? Zhang Xiaohu was overjoyed and said, That's really too much trouble for the third Master Chu. The third Master Chu smiled and said, It's nothing. It's my good fortune to be able to find a martial arts genius like you in the escort agency. In the future, our escort agency will rely on you young people. Zhang Xiaohu and Yu Dai hurriedly said, We don't dare. We still have to rely on the guidance of the elders. Then, the third Master Chu encouraged Zhang Xiaohu with a few words and let him go back. However, when Zhang Xiaohu stood up, he bowed to the third Master Chu and said, Third Master Chu, there's something else that I don't know if I should say. The third Master Chu smiled and said, There's no harm in saying it. Zhang Xiaohu said, Isn't my little brother recuperating in bed? He's bored and wants to find some martial arts manuals to read, but I don't know where to find them for him. I heard that there are some martial arts manuals in the martial arts training hall. Do you think you can lend some to him to read? The third Master Chu lowered his head and thought for a moment before saying, This can be done. This child is so eager to learn. We must support him. I'll write a note for you to take. You can borrow whatever you want, as long as he likes to read it. However, you must remind him not to spread it around. Understand? Zhang Xiaohu was wild with joy. He took the third Master Chu's note and left happily after thanking him profusely. Please add it to your collection. Thank you. Chapter 100. Yu Dai, who was left behind, was puzzled. She asked, Grandpa Chu, why are you so nice to him? You even let him borrow the martial arts school's manual? The third Master Chu smiled and said, Have you seen the martial arts school's manual? Yu Dai said, I haven't. The third Master Chu asked again, Then why haven't you seen it? Yu Dai asked curiously, Why would I look at the manual? Don't the martial arts school's masters teach me? If I were to look at the manual wrongly, then it would be a matter of life and death during a fight. I understand now. Grandpa Chu, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. You gave a useless manual to Zhang Xiaohu as a favor for no reason. The third Master Chu smiled and said, That's right. You have to consider everything carefully. You can't just look at the surface. I brought Zhang Xiaohu from being a bodyguard to the martial arts school with the intention of roping him in. I'm using this as a favor for his younger brother. He will definitely remember my kindness. Moreover, how can someone like him, who has no foundation, learn a profound inner strength cultivation method if he enters the martial arts school? Won't he still have to follow me? Yudei also smiled and said, I understand now. Grandpa Chu, if he listens to you, then you will teach him a profound inner strength cultivation method. Otherwise, you can just find someone to teach him a normal cultivation method. In any case, any inner strength cultivation method will be out of his reach. The third Master Chu smiled proudly and praised him. You are a promising child. However, you left out two things. First, whether it's a profound inner strength cultivation method or a normal inner strength cultivation method, this Zhang Xiaohu will never be able to master it. He will always be under the control of our escort agency. Secondly, his younger brother's hand is already crippled. Even if I show him the inner strength mantra of the martial arts school, he won't be able to learn it, let alone a mere fist manual, and an extremely ordinary one at that. Yudei's face was full of regret as he said, Grandpa Chu, I didn't expect you to be so talented. The third Master Chu twirled his beard and chuckled. It was as if his name was Proud. How would Zhang Xiaohu know about this? He only cared about pleasing his younger brother so that he would have something to do and not have time to think about his injuries. The collection in the Martial Arts Center was very rich. There were many saber manuals, sword manuals, and so on. Of course, most of them were the fist manuals, which filled up the entire shelf. Zhang Xiaohu scanned through them and found that there were at least 100 manuals. He could not help but feel surprised and happy at the same time. He was surprised that there were so many fist manuals. If the bodyguard agency's collection was only this much, then what about the ones circulating in Jianghu? He used to be a frog in a well. Even though it was good to specialize in different techniques, he would still take a look when he had the time. He was happy that there were so many fist manuals, which would probably be enough for his younger brother to read during this period of time. Even after he recovered from his injuries, it would still be enough for him to read for a while. However, he immediately felt a little sad. Once his injuries were healed and his younger brother knew that he could no longer practice martial arts, would he still look at these fist manuals? Looking at so many fist manuals, Zhang Xiaohu did not know how to choose. However, after thinking about it, he still took the first one on the top. Actually, it didn't matter. He planned to let Xiaohua pass the time anyway. Anyone would do. If not, he would let him read one by one. However, looking at the shelves full of books, Zhang Xiaohu felt a headache coming on. He could not help but shake his head. How could it be? He took out the fist manual and the person in charge casually flipped through it and recorded it in a booklet. He did not ask much and let Zhang Xiaohu take it away. With the fist manual in his arms, Zhang Xiaohu hummed a country song and walked back to his room with relaxed steps. As soon as he opened the door, he heard Li Jinfeng talking to Zhang Xiaohua. Xiaohua, I don't want to praise you, but you are really too damn smart. I advise you to give up on martial arts and pursue literature. What's so good about practicing martial arts? Fighting and killing every day without a single peaceful day. Then you can study literature, read books, and write poems. You won't be blown by the wind or drenched by the rain. Isn't that great? Zhang Xiaohu heard this and was baffled. He said, Young Master Li, what's going on? When Li Jinfeng saw Zhang Xiaohu enter the room, he happily pulled his hand and said, Zhang Xiaohu, help me persuade your younger brother. He is still a child. Why should he suffer so much to learn martial arts? With his brain, if he studied hard for 2 years, it would be easy for him to get some scholarly honor. When the time comes, he can walk on the path of an official. Wouldn't that be great? Zhang Xiaohu was still confused. He said, Is Xiaohua very smart? How come I don't know? I watched him grow up. I never heard that he was a child prodigy. If he was smart, my father would have sent him to school a long time ago. Why would he bring him around school? When Li Jinfeng heard this, he frowned and said, I don't know what Xiaohua was like when he was young, but now that he has grown up, perhaps he has been enlightened. Zhang Xiaohu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, You should be clear. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. How can I persuade him? Li Jinfeng smiled and said, I was too rash and too impatient. You weren't in the room often these days, so I was teaching little Blossom how to read. In the beginning, his learning speed was quite normal, just like a normal person. But later on, His learning speed became faster and faster. In this period of time, he was already able to read this fist technique manual. Also, look at his writing. Although he was sitting on the Kong bed and writing with his left hand, it was actually quite standard and his improvement was godly. His aptitude is 100 times better than mine. It's a pity that he doesn't go to school. Zhang Xiaohu's heart moved. He picked up Zhang Xiaohua's writing. Sure enough, he remembered seeing him write at home before. The writing was of different sizes, like crabs crawling. The writing on the paper was neat and looked very neat. Thus, he said to Zhang Xiaohua, who was sitting on the Kong, "Xiaohua, I see that you have a great talent in reading. You were young before, so I didn't notice it. Fortunately, you're not old now. I think you should go study literature. In the future, if you become a top scorer, you can bring glory to the family. Father and mother will be very happy." Zhang Xiaohua said in a serious tone, "Of course not. Second brother, Mr. Liu and Liu Kai's knowledge is not bad. But when sister-in-law is being bullied, can they intervene? Since I've embarked on the path of martial arts, I definitely won't give up halfway. Don't you think so, brotherly? If I change my mind every now and then, how can I become a capable person?" Zhang Xiaohu saw that he had made up his mind, so he didn't try to persuade him. Li Jinfeng's eyes lit up as he listened. He secretly said in his heart, "This is clearly a rare character. Even his refusal is so eloquent. How can I let him go? Didn't the doctor say that Zhang Xiaohua can't practice martial arts in the future? I won't try to persuade him anymore. I'll just preach in detail. When he knows that he has no way to practice martial arts, won't he still come and study literature with me?" Thinking about this, he rolled his eyes and said, Xiaohua's words are reasonable, but practicing martial arts should be to strengthen the body. Fighting and killing in Jianghu is not harmonious. If you have the opportunity to study literature, you must inform your brother Li, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Okay, when the time comes, I will definitely learn from brother Li. However, I think brother Li will definitely be disappointed. Li Jinfeng said with a smile, if he's disappointed, then he's disappointed. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. It doesn't matter. Now that you know a lot of words and can read the fist manual, I'll give you the ancient books that we read tomorrow. Even if you don't study literature, reading these will be very beneficial for your martial arts practice. Really? Then thank you, brotherly tomorrow. Bring it to me early so that I can read it. I've been reading this fist manual for the past few days. It's boring. Zhang Xiaohua was very happy when he heard this. Li Jinfeng said as if he had seen a fish that had taken the bait. Since you know that the fist manual is boring, the ancient books I'll bring tomorrow will definitely make you read them with great interest. You won't be willing to let them go. Haha. Then, he looked at the sky, packed his things, and bid farewell. After Li Jinfeng left, Zhang Xiaohu looked tenderly at Zhang Xiaohua and said, Xiaohua, I didn't know that you were so literate and had such good aptitude. I think you should consider young Master Li's suggestion. Being able to live a peaceful life is also a good choice. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said, Second brother, why are you so long-winded today? I've never been very smart since I was young. The teachers all said so. Who knows what's going on now? Maybe Brother Li was just joking. I've never thought of going to study. Is there something second brother wants to say? Ahem. Zhang Xiaohu coughed for a while and quickly changed the topic, saying, There really is something I want to tell you. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and said, What is it, second brother? You've learned to keep me in suspense? Zhang Xiaohu mysteriously took out the fist manual from his chest and said, Look, what is this? Zhang Xiaohua took it and carefully looked at it, saying, Isn't this the Erlang Fist's manual? Second brother, where did you get this? Erlang Fist? Zhang Xiaohu was stunned and quickly took the manual. He carefully looked at it. That's right, the big 2 on the cover was right there. He was preoccupied with taking the manual and didn't look at it carefully. It was fine if he didn't recognize the other 2 words, but he actually didn't see the 2. It was really embarrassing. This kind of lack of education was really scary. That librarian was also the same. He actually didn't read it. Zhang Xiaohu's face was a bit red. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's curious gaze, Zhang Xiaohu mumbled to her about what happened in the afternoon. When Zhang Xiaohua heard that second brother had actually found such a good opportunity for her, her eyes lit up as if they could release countless stars. She loudly said, "Second brother, I really admire you. You're my lifelong idol. Thank you." Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's excitement as expected, Zhang Xiaohu was happy from the bottom of his heart. However, he still said, "Let's forget about this first book. I'll immediately go get you another one." Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him and said, "Don't change it yet, second brother. We just borrowed it, so go get it changed. Don't let anyone say anything. If you don't let us borrow it, then it won't be good. Let's leave it here for now and go get it changed tomorrow." Zhang Xiaohu could only say, "Okay, I'll go tomorrow morning." Afterwards, Zhang Xiaohua excitedly asked about the librarian's situation. Zhang Xiaohu also explained in detail. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua was abnormally happy and said, "That's great, second brother. I must read through all the fist manuals inside." Zhang Xiaohu thought about that shelf of books and didn't have the heart to interrupt his younger brother's mood. He said, "Okay, I support you, Xiaohua." Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua asked again, "Second brother, have you seen any books on internal strength?" Zhang Xiaohu scratched his head and said, "I'm not very literate. How would I know which book is for internal strength?" This fist manual was also taken by someone else to find it. However, I think that the mental cultivation method for internal strength shouldn't be shown to me or let me borrow it. They must have kept it very secretive. Zhang Xiaohua nodded when he heard this. If it could be easily borrowed, then what was so precious about it? Zhang Xiaohu casually threw the Erlang fist manual on the Kong bed. After dinner, Zhang Xiaohu was still practicing his Liuhe fist under the oil lamp. Zhang Xiaohua watched in boredom. He was really curious. Wasn't this just a set of Liuhe fist? There were so many moves over and over again. What was there to practice? His second brother was still treating it like a treasure. He practiced it over and over again. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was slow. Was it really effective? He was very doubtful. He was extremely bored. He casually picked up the fist manual by the Kong bed and flipped through it under the faint light. As he flipped through it, he suddenly made a sound. His hand stopped on a page of the fist manual. Zhang Xiaohu, who was practicing, heard the sound and quickly asked, "What's wrong, Xiaohua?" "Oh, second brother, I saw a very strange place." Zhang Xiaohua explained, "Bring the oil lamp over." Zhang Xiaohu obeyed and brought the oil lamp closer. Zhang Xiaohua carefully looked at the page in front of him. He then picked up the other fist manual that Li Jinfeng brought over and flipped to the same page. He carefully compared it and then nodded. He said to Zhang Xiaohu with certainty, "Second brother, look at this place. This is the book that you borrowed from the library. This page is the move that I learned. Compared to the fist manual that Brother Li brought over, the side of the body is a bit stronger and the position of the fist strike is a bit lower. It's the same mistake that I made. However, the one that I remember is a bit stronger than the one you brought over." Zhang Xiaohu rubbed his chin and frowned. What does this mean? Mistakes can be made in the fist manual and mistakes can be made when the master teaches. Then wouldn't the Erlang fist that is passed down in the Jianghu be different? Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "Second brother, what you said makes sense. Moreover, this fist technique has been passed down from the past to the present. It's probably not the same as before." Zhang Xiaohu said, Yes. Although the big things won't change, the small details will definitely change a lot." Ha ha ha. Zhang Xiaohua faced the sky and let out a long laugh. Zhang Xiaohu stared blankly and said, "Are you crazy? Why are you laughing so lewdly?" "Ignore. Spoof." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Second brother, Captain he said that my fist technique was wrong and always corrected me here and there. However, I just couldn't change it. Now it seems that as long as the moves are correct, there's no need to think so much about the details. In fact, no matter how much you think about it, what Captain he learned might not be the most correct. What do you think?" Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, "You're right." "Then, you're going to," Zhang Xiaohua said. "I think that when I practice in the future, I'll rely on my memory. What I remember is what it is. What I remember is what it is. What I remember is what it is. I don't plan on correcting it." Zhang Xiaohu patted his head and mocked him. "That's right. You can't change it even if you want to. If you don't do it this way, how can you do it? You're just finding an excuse for yourself." Zhang Xiaohua grinned and said, "Maybe. The knot in Zhang Xiaohua's heart was untied. He slowly flipped through the manual and tried to memorize more moves. In fact, when Li Jinfeng brought the manual over, he had already tried to memorize more moves. Unfortunately, at that time, he had a deep impression of it. When he recalled it the next day, other than those 2 moves, there was no trace of the other moves. It was just like when he practiced in the Huanxi mountain villa. Therefore, when Li Jinfeng praised him for being smart, he didn't dare to respond. This kind of memory was 1 in a million. It would be good if he didn't say that he was mediocre. How would he dare to wear the hat of being smart? If he was exposed one day, it would be very embarrassing. However, when it came to Li Jinfeng's teaching of literacy, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but feel proud. Just like Li Jinfeng said, he remembered it clearly and used his left hand more smoothly. However, just as Zhang Xiaohu said, he was already a teenager. He didn't need to be so proud of learning things that children taught him. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly heard a plop sound. Zhang Xiaohua looked up and saw that it was Zhang Xiaohu who had fallen to the ground. He couldn't help but become anxious and shouted, "Second brother, what's going on?" Falling to the ground while practicing boxing was not a good thing. Could it be that he had gone mad? Who would have thought that Zhang Xiaohu would jump up like a carp? His posture was still confident and at ease. He patted the dust off his body and said, "It's nothing, Xiaohua." Only then did Zhang Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief. Zhang Xiaohu explained, "Just now, when I hit a spot, there was still a gap in front of my fist. I suddenly thought of what you said just now. This boxing technique might be wrong. Thus, I extended my fist forward and my body leaned forward. My feet were still preparing to change to the next move. My waist didn't twist and I lost my balance. Hee, I fell down." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he raised his thumb and said, "Second brother, you really are a genius. Since ancient times, you are the first person to be able to fall down while practicing boxing. Although it can't be said that there won't be anyone in the future, this is something that no one has ever done before." Zhang Xiaohu spat and said, "That's what you get for your glib tongue." Then, Zhang Xiaohua stopped smiling and said sternly, "Second brother, what I said just now was just a guess. You can't take it seriously. Don't take it to heart. The Liuhe fist or Erlang fist has been passed down for so many years. Many people have practiced it, so it must have its benefits. If you suddenly change the style during a competition, you might be courting death. Moreover, everyone's martial arts path is different. At first, when I saw that you were so good at practicing only one set of Liuhe boxing, I wanted to learn from you. Moreover, there are probably other people in the escort agency who want to learn from you. But, look at me, I can't even remember the complete set of Arhat boxing. How can I only learn one set of boxing techniques?" When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he nodded slightly. Zhang Xiaohua continued, "So, your path is not my path, and my path is not your path. I changed the move because I couldn't remember it. You don't have to. You have practiced this Liuhe boxing for so long. How can you change it? Moreover, you don't know how to change it. Please add it to your collection. Thank you." Chapter 101. Zhang Xiaohu thoughtfully nodded his head and didn't say anything else. After thinking for a moment, he went back to practicing. This time, he practiced very slowly. Zhang Xiaohua was worried and also watched for a while, but didn't see anything special. However, seeing her second brother's natural and smooth steps, it was probably normal, so she relaxed. His mind was placed on the fist manual in front of him again. However, as he looked at it, his vision became blurry, and he soon fell asleep. Ever since he was injured, Zhang Xiaohua's sleep came a lot earlier. He often fell asleep before midnight. It was probably because his body was weak and he needed to rest. In his dream, an unknown fluctuation spread from his left hand to his entire body. In his dream, the flickering was still the same. The next day, when Zhang Xiaohua woke up, the first thing he did was to quickly recall the moves of the Erlang fist from yesterday. Just like before, he was disappointed again. However, after being disappointed so many times, he was already used to it. He patted the 2 manuals next to him with an expressionless face. After breakfast, Zhang Xiaohu took the borrowed Erlang fist manual and went out. Not long after, Li Jinfeng, Mr. Li, came. He first asked about Zhang Xiaohua's situation, then mysteriously took out a thick book from his chest and said to Zhang Xiaohua with a sinister smile, "Xiaohua, look what good thing I brought for you." Zhang Xiaohua had a very bad feeling in his heart and said, "Brother Li, I can't guess what good thing this is." Li Jinfeng put the book in front of Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Look, what's written on it?" Zhang Xiaohua looked at the cover and vaguely recognized the words, Shuo Wenjie. Puzzled, she said, "Isn't it Shuo Wenjie? What kind of book is this?" Li Jinfeng giggled and said, "This book? It's a book that all scholars must know. It's the most basic of the basics. Look." As he spoke, Li Jinfeng opened the book and randomly flipped to a page and said, "Look, Xiaohua, every page of this book has many words. Then, there's the explanation of each word, meaning, and how to quote many ancient books. This is a required course for us scholars. I recommend that you completely memorize it from beginning to end. In the future, you won't have any problems learning to read and write." The pitiful Zhang Xiaohua looked at the densely packed words on the page and thought about how thick the book was. He had a headache and said, "Big Brother Li, do I have to memorize all these words? It really isn't something that ordinary people can do. No wonder people respect you scholars so much. Amazing." Li Jinfeng smiled embarrassedly and said, "Hi hey, that's right. The skill of grinding an iron rod into a needle isn't something that just anyone can do. However, I believe that with your talent, it won't be a problem." Zhang Xiaohua evaded and said, "Brother Li, you see, I don't specialize in studying. Can you make an exception? This thing is too thick. How can I learn it?" Li Jinfeng firmly shook his head and said, "No, if you want to do it, you have to do it the best and start from a professional. Moreover, this book is very basic and is especially suitable for you. This is something that I thought about all night before choosing for you. You mustn't disappoint my efforts." Zhang Xiaohua looked at Li Jinfeng's enthusiasm and bitterly opened the first page of the book. She listened to Li Jinfeng's explanation and began the genius training plan that Li Jinfeng specially prepared for Zhang Xiaohua. Wasn't this the legendary driving a duck onto a perch? Shuo Wenjie was actually a dictionary. Of course, there were many things in it. The first page had 20 words, and the annotations of these words added up to 400 to 500 words. Even the genius student in Li Jinfeng's eyes, Zhang Xiaohua, was dizzy. This wasn't a fist manual. There were pictures and impressions. It was lively and interesting to learn. Not long after, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't bear it anymore. She just wanted to understand the fist manual. She wasn't the top scorer. Was there a need to work so hard? However, Li Jinfeng dismissed her with one sentence. "Could it be that you're worse than an enlightened child? If you can't even learn this, how can you understand those abstract fist manuals? You practiced the fist manual last time, and I explained it to you. If it's a brand new fist manual and you haven't practiced it at all, the things written in it are very important. If there's a mistake in a word, it will lead to qigong deviation. Are you sure you don't want to learn these basic lessons?" Zhang Xiaohua, who had never seen anyone enlighten him, was naturally speechless. For the sake of his martial arts, for the sake of saving the common people, and for the sake of saving the people of Jianghu from the abyss of suffering, he could only pull himself together and bury his head in the ground once more. Unfortunately, there was a limit to human strength. Zhang Xiaohua studied hard for a whole day. Even when Zhang Xiaohu came back at noon and quietly put a fist manual on the Kong, Zhang Xiaohua didn't have time to look at it. As a result, when Li Jinfeng left in the afternoon with a smile, she still hadn't finished learning the words on the first page. Zhang Xiaohua was depressed and depressed. Learning literature was much more difficult than practicing martial arts. No wonder there were so many forthright men in Jianghu. Without the spirit to endure hardships, they really couldn't make a living by writing. Li Jinfeng, who left, was 120% satisfied. No child had ever been enlightened from Shuo Wenjie. It was a miracle that a person who had only read one fist manual could recognize 300 or 400 words in a day. Moreover, he was still confident in Zhang Xiaohua's memory. As long as she remembered it, she wouldn't forget it the next day. Then, she would really be his in the future. Today's results could be checked tomorrow. Thinking that a Confucian weirdo was going to blossom under his training, he felt excited to walk. After Li Jinfeng left, Zhang Xiaohua was very tired. Lying on the Kong, He was about to fall asleep. Suddenly, he remembered that his second brother had brought back a fist manual at noon. He immediately opened his eyes and became energetic. Picking up the fist manual on the Kong, Zhang Xiaohua looked at the darkening sky outside the window and clearly saw the three big words, South Branch Fist, on the cover. Oh, he had never heard of this fist technique before. Then, he opened the fist manual and slowly read from the first page. Fortunately, Li Jinfeng's teaching was still effective. Although he had just read the book for a day, he could recognize many of the words in the fist manual. As for the words that he didn't recognize, he could understand a little according to the pictures in the fist manual and his own guesses. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua read from the beginning to the end with great interest. Gradually, he felt that there seemed to be a little person in his mind who was gesturing and practicing according to his understanding of the fist manual. When he finished reading the fist manual, the little person also finished practicing the fist technique. Involuntarily, Zhang Xiaohua was pleasantly surprised. This fist manual was really good stuff. However, although Zhang Xiaohua knew how to practice this fist technique, he still didn't understand the key points and precautions of each move and style. It was probably because he didn't understand the annotations. This would have to wait for Li Jinfeng to come tomorrow to explain word by word. Perhaps he would understand. Moreover, Zhang Xiaohua was injured and could not practice. He did not know if his memory was correct, and if he could really rely on reading this fist manual without his master's guidance. Although he was afraid that Li Jinfeng would force him to study, but he also hoped that he would quickly come and explain the fist manual to him. Zhang Xiaohua could not help but feel conflicted. When he woke up the next day, Zhang Xiaohua habitually recalled the fist manual that he had read yesterday. He did not have any expectations, but this time he was greatly shocked. He actually remembered the South Branch Fist that he had read yesterday from beginning to end. Zhang Xiaohua's mouth was wide open. He was overjoyed. My ancestors have finally shown me the light of day. Zhang Xiaohua was a little incoherent. He didn't know how to express his joy. Then, he became even more puzzled. What was the reason for this? Could it be that the heavens gave him a chance because he was injured? If that was the case, he was willing to recuperate every day. But didn't he only read the Erlang Fist manual after he was injured? Why was it still the same two moves? Zhang Xiaohua was puzzled. But soon, he did not have time to think. Li Jinfeng came again, and Zhang Xiaohua began the second day of learning Shuo Wen Jiezi. The second day's lesson was as difficult as the first day, and he still did not finish learning a single page. However, it was not that Zhang Xiaohua could not finish learning, but he requested Li Jinfeng to explain the South Branch Fist manual to him. Although Li Jinfeng did not know martial arts, his ability to read and write was not for show. As he explained word by word, Zhang Xiaohua repeatedly nodded his head. By the time he finished explaining the fist manual, the sky was already dark. The food that Yu Luan had sent over had already been picked up by Zhang Xiaohu to heat up. Zhang Xiaohua and his brother warmly invited him to stay, so Li Jinfeng did not stand on ceremony. They chatted as they ate, and the three of them were very harmonious. After Li Jinfeng left, Zhang Xiaohu was still vigorously practicing in the room, while Zhang Xiaohua was lying on the Kong. The fist technique that Li Jinfeng had just explained flowed through his mind, and it was as clear as the fist technique that he had learned before. Could it be that this was his way of practicing martial arts? Zhang Xiaohua could not help but ponder to himself. However, Zhang Xiaohua could faintly feel that the flow of this technique was different from the flow of the previous techniques. The previous techniques were vivid and lifelike, and it was like a real person practicing the fist technique. However, this South Branch Fist technique was like a human figure practicing the fist technique. The fist technique was clear, but there was no charm to it. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua tried the same trick again. He wanted to mix this South Branch Fist technique with the techniques that he had learned before and see if he could find a perfect combination of techniques. However, he quickly realized that he was wrong. This South Branch Fist technique was like a complete set of fist techniques, and his previous techniques could not be inserted into it. What was going on? Zhang Xiaohua looked at his second older brother who was practicing in the room. He wanted to call out to him for reference, but he suddenly remembered Zhang Xiaohu's fall yesterday, and he gave up on that thought. It was better to solve his own problems himself. He did not want to drag his second older brother into this and ruin his cultivation for no reason. When he woke up the next day, Zhang Xiaohua was still trying to recall his memories. He nervously tested to see if his joy from yesterday was short-lived. The result was a pleasant surprise for Zhang Xiaohua. The techniques that Li Jinfeng had explained before were all in his mind, and there was nothing missing. It was like a treasure trove that was filled with treasures, waiting for him to recover so that he could practice them one by one. Once again, Zhang Xiaohua's tears flowed freely. The heavens have pity on me. I'm finally not trash anymore. In the morning, Zhang Xiaohu still had to go out. These few days, Zhang Xiaohu was preparing to go to the training center to study, and he still had some things to take care of with the guards. When he suddenly saw Zhang Xiaohua's sad and happy expression, he hurriedly said, "Xiaohua, what's wrong? Looking like this, is there a change in your injury? Is your arm hurting again?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "It's fine, second older brother. The injury doesn't hurt as much as before, so it's probably getting better. I've already read this fist technique manual. Can you give me a new one today?" Zhang Xiaohu stared blankly and said in disbelief, "You've really finished reading it?" Immediately, as if he understood, he hurriedly said, "Okay, it's fine. I'll immediately change it for you." Zhang Xiaohua felt that her second older brother seemed to have misunderstood, so she hurriedly said, "It's true, second older brother. I've already finished reading it, so you can change it for a new one." Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "Okay, I'll bring it back for you in the afternoon." After he finished speaking, he put the Southern Branch Fist Technique manual into his pocket and walked out with a smile. Not long after, the cute and respectable Mr. Li Jinfeng came again. This guy didn't seem to go to school and would come to teach Zhang Xiaohua every day. This made Zhang Xiaohua very depressed. "Your main job is to study, okay? Why do you keep coming to teach me? Is it because you've been tortured by the teacher that you've developed psychological problems? Do you have to get it back from me?" However, Li Jinfeng was actually teaching Zhang Xiaohua how to read and write, so Zhang Xiaohua carefully waited on him with a smile. In these few days, Zhang Xiaohua was in pain but happy at the same time. On one hand, she was crazily tortured by Li Jinfeng, absorbing the new words in the Shuo Wenjie like a sponge. On the other hand, she very happily read the fist technique manual that Zhang Xiaohua borrowed every day. Each set of fist techniques was like a river, constantly surging in Zhang Xiaohua's mind. Unexpectedly, not a single drop of water was lost. In fact, learning this Shuo Wenjie was more difficult in the first few days because every page was a new word. As she read further, Zhang Xiaohua found that the words she had learned before frequently appeared at the back. It didn't seem to be difficult. At first, she learned page by page, then 2, 3, and even 5 pages. Later, Zhang Xiaohua found the trick. In fact, there weren't many new words on each page of Shuo Wenjie. The other words were used to explain this word. When Zhang Xiaohua learned all the commonly used words, she would naturally know the new word. At this time, the reading of the fist technique manual also made great progress. From Li Jinfeng's help to explain, Zhang Xiaohua read it herself. If she didn't understand something, she would ask Li Jinfeng. In the end, Zhang Xiaohua could read independently without relying on Li Jinfeng. Moreover, the words in the fist technique manual were limited. Moreover, the words that appeared in each fist technique manual were roughly the same. After reading more, she would naturally understand what they meant. As a result, Li Jinfeng, this teacher, didn't have to come every day. Instead, he came every other day. This made Zhang Xiaohua greatly relieved. After all, the days with someone supervising were tense. Zhang Xiaohua still preferred to study leisurely by herself and read freely. Zhang Xiaohu had already gone to the martial arts training center to study. At this time, he had already absorbed Zhang Xiaohua's suggestions, or perhaps it was his own understanding. If he was limited to the 6-joint fists, his own vision would be limited. Now, he was also learning other fist techniques from the martial arts masters. The third Master Chu was happy to see Zhang Xiaohu's change. The third Master Chu was a veteran in the Jianghu. His martial arts were naturally excellent and his views were certainly original. When he agreed to let Zhang Xiaohu enter the martial arts training center to study, it was to appease his emotions. More importantly, Zhang Xiaohu was a promising talent and had his own views on martial arts. However, although one's own views were important, it was also extremely important to integrate the strengths of various schools. The third Master Chu had always been worried about what Zhang Xiaohu would do if he only practiced the six-joint fists in the martial arts training center. How should he persuade him? Now that his worries were all gone, of course he was happy. Zhang Xiaohu's simple style and practical martial arts style were also very well received by everyone in the martial arts training center. Only the steward of the library had a bad opinion of him. Anyone who came to the library to borrow a fist technique manual must have a meticulous plan. Which one of them didn't borrow it for 10 days to half a month before returning it? Many people didn't return it for a few months. This Zhang Xiaohu, on the other hand, borrowed a book a day. Do you think this is Jin Pingmei? The fist technique manuals on this bookshelf, from top to bottom, from left to right, you change them one by one. If you want to borrow them, then so be it. You make me have to register them every day. Do you think I'm too idle? Thus, the complaint paper was placed in front of the third Master Chu's desk. When the steward entered the room, Yu Dei was also in the third Master Chu's room. The steward was very careful. He first glanced at Yu Dei and asked the third Master Chu, "The library has some matters to ask the third master. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to say it." The third Master Chu nodded and said, "There's no harm in saying it. Dei is my relative. There's no need to avoid it." The steward immediately bowed and smiled apologetically to Yu Dei. Yu Dei also returned the gesture and nodded. The steward said, "This matter isn't very big, but it's very strange. I'm afraid there's something going on. It's better to ask the third master for instructions." The third Master Chu frowned and said, "Don't talk to me about books. If you have something to say it." The steward immediately said, "Yes. About 20 days ago, Zhang Xiaohu, who was still a bodyguard, took your note and went to the library to borrow a fist technique manual." The third Master Chu was stunned and said, "Yes, there was such a matter. What's wrong? You didn't borrow it from him?" The steward smiled and said, "With your note, how would I dare not to borrow it?" The third Master Chu said, "Then what's the matter? Don't tell me he wants to borrow other sword or knife manuals. If there's no need to keep it a secret, just give it to him." The steward said, "Third Master, you're mistaken. He only wanted to borrow a fist technique manual. He didn't make any other requests." The third Master Chu frowned again and said, "Then what's the problem? Don't tell me he found some ancient secret manual from the library." The steward said, "Third Master is joking. The books in the library were organized by me. There's not a single book on internal strength. How could there be an ancient item?" Yu Dei interrupted and said, "Uncle is just joking. Tell me, what's the matter with Zhang Xiaohu?" The steward said, "There's nothing wrong with Zhang Xiaohu borrowing a fist technique manual, but he borrows one every day and returns it on time the next morning. Then he borrows another one. He doesn't carefully select the fist technique manuals either. Instead, he borrows them from top to bottom, from left to right. He borrows them one by one. This doesn't seem logical." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.